I probably pronounced the name all wrong. I apologize. But it was just so great sitting next to such a young tour guide who was telling me stuff about St. Louis and everything. I just want to let her know I appreciate her spirit so much. And all these other young ones, you mean the world to us. And I feel good knowing that your generation is coming up after us. And I hope that we do you justice. Okay. In November, we are going to be having our annual march on the White House, the white people's house, the white racist symbol of torture and hell in the belly, in the bowels of the beast, the bowels of the beast and lower. And that is Washington, D.C. And we deliberately make a point every year to make sure that we go there and we represent and we present our demands. We march on that house no matter who's in that damned office, because it doesn't matter the color of the president. The house is still white, and what it represents, a horrific, crippling, devastating system of oppression and capitalism and exploitation. It received every bit of everything that it has off of the bloodshed and attempted destruction of our people and other indigenous people. But we are still here. We reject a system that prides itself on the destruction of people and then has the audacity to turn around and call it freedom. There ain't nothing free about that. There's not a damn thing free at all under any, no matter how you look at it, about living in this country. Not a damn thing free about it. You go to the supermarkets and tell me about how free it is. Exactly. So it is imperative that we go there. It is imperative that we put forward an uncompromising political agenda, an uncompromising political roadmap, so to speak, for our people, because many times I feel that some of our people, our hearts might be right, but if you're not used to thinking in a certain way, if you don't even know that there are other boxes to even look at, you're not going to think that way. You're not going to call it that way. We speak the language of Black liberation. We speak that language of Black liberation, the complete freedom from an unjust system. Our dependence, our existence does not and should not depend on anyone else's existence. We can exist outside of this white racist paradigm. Coexistence, of course, is something that is nice. I certainly want it. But that's not what my existence depends on. The existence of African people depends on the existence and the strength of African people. Only we can do that. Only we can do that for each other. Nobody else. And that we have to continue to live under a system in which there's no semblance of freedom. We literally live under a system where, and I just like to break it down like this because this is how I understand it. White people don't have to rely on us for one damn thing ever. They don't have to rely on us to get a job. They don't have to rely on us for their taxes. They don't have to come to us for one thing at all. But yet, that is not the existence of Black people. That just is not. That just is not our reality. But we aim to make it so. We aim to make it a reality based on righteous principles. We don't want to replace white face with Black face. I don't want to sit at their tables. I don't want to eat what they eat. I don't want that. And I should hope that anyone of consciousness, anyone who happens to be white, I can't speak for them, but I would hope that they would get tired of living with that horrific legacy, that was produced by people seeking to build white power. And it is just the absolute truth. And so every year in November. The dates we will be going this November are November. Oh, thank you. Yes, no, November 3rd and 4th in Washington, D.C. And we ask that you join us. We want to really get a strong mobilization of our people. We want to build it and get it stronger every year because Trump just is, I mean, and he is what he is. He's a horrible, rotten, no good, SOB and all those other kind of things. But he's not that different from the other ones. It's just a matter of style a little bit. One dresses a little differently. One maybe says words a little differently. One's a little flowery with it. One's a little more sugary with it. But the system, the destruction, the constant wars. Talk to those people who are living in war zones where we are bombing the hell out of them, and you tell them to tell me if they see a difference between when Trump drops a bomb or when it was Obama or the Clintons or any so-called president. You ask me if they see a difference. I didn't see no difference, really, when Sean Bell was gunned down 50 times and Obama said we had to respect that. I didn't feel much difference between when it happened to Sean Bell under Obama or when one of us is being gunned down under Trump. We still are not getting any justice. You think the words you use are supposed to mean something to tell us no matter what, there will be no justice? You think because you smile when you say it, that that's supposed to have meaning? It doesn't. It doesn't at all. There is no difference. It is the government, and that's how we must approach it. And so, again, this November 4th and 5th, we ask our comrades to organize. We're going to try to organize strongly in New York. We want to bring we want to bring a strong group of people with us. We have the numbers in that area. We got to make it reflect the Black is Back Coalition. We got to make the numbers of the Black is Back Coalition reflect everywhere where we are, everywhere where our people are oppressed. We got to build these numbers because something happens when you come together with a group of people fighting for revolution. If you have any kind of fear, and I'm no different from people, I feel afraid too. But I know the worst thing is to be out there by myself. I want justice. I want liberation. My only guarantee to getting it is you all. Not no courts, not no president, not no politicians. It's you. And when I look in the mirror, we have always been our own liberators. Always. And now we have to own our language. We have to own our direction. And we have to do it. So again, November 4th and 5th in Washington, D.C., a town, an area that our ancestors, I just love remembering this part because they don't like us to remember this. They burnt that city down. They lit it up. I want to go back to honor that as well. So November 4th and 5th, our annual 3rd and 4th. Boy, sleep really does make a difference. But November 3rd and 4th, come to D.C. with us. Come to Washington, D.C. To the White House. To the White House with our Black liberation agenda. To the White House. To the White House. Where we going? Where we going? You gotta scare the white people. Where we going? I don't hear you. Where we going? That's right. Black. We going to the White House, y'all, in November. Come on, y'all. Thank you so much for that, Comrade Lisa Davis. Thank you so much for that. And I also I see a lot of new faces, so I wanted to know real quick, if this is your first BIB event, if you could just stand up really quickly. You could just stand up. All right. The hand clap.
I didn't say sit down. Stand up. Keep standing up. All right. So I just want to point at you real quick. Say your name and where you're from. Real quick. Boom. All right, ATA. All right, you can sit down now. Boom. Huntsville, Alabama. Boom. All right, Virginia in the house. Boom. Okay, St. Louis. St. Louis. Boom. Okay, Chi-Town, Chirac. Okay. Boom. All right. We coming from all over the place, baby. They don't know what to do with us, y'all. All right. Okay, now next I get to introduce my chairman and the chairman of this amazing coalition, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. We just went on this man needs no introduction. All right, been fighting for my black ass for 50 years, all right? Before my mom even thought about me, okay? Before she orgasmed, he was fighting for me, all right? Thank you. All right, and we just went and saw, where they murdered Mike Brown and where Chairman went and was trying to speak, to the people and for the people, and they kicked him off that stage when he said the word revolution. And look, 3-4 years later, he made the blueprint and designed it, and Deputy Chair came here and built a stage where we can say, revolution, revolution, revolution! All right! So everybody get on up, and let's give a round of applause for Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Oh!
Uhuru, comrades. I really want to express my appreciation for everyone who has come out. I want to send a special statement of appreciation for the comrades who worked so hard to prepare this place for this meeting on today, for the committee that did the work here on the ground, that some of whom got in like 3 o'clock yesterday morning, and they've come here, they've done this setup, they've cleared up everything, set up the operations for us. So I really want to express appreciation for you, comrades, for doing that work. Brothers and sisters, comrades, I cannot overstate the significance of this Black is Back Coalition for social justice, peace, and reparations. For some, the idea that we would be going into our 9th year of existence as a coalition would appear far-fetched. When we came together, many of us did not know each other. There are various organizations and personalities and institutions that constitute this coalition. And we had come through a period after the brutal, murderous defeat of the Black Revolution of the 1960s that had really wiped out the revolutionary movement of our people. Looking at Brother Ralph Porn in the front here, who is the person who introduced Malcolm X to Queens. Was it Queens? Took him and introduced him to every place. And I think about that because Malcolm was one of the most important symbols of the Black Revolution of the 60s. I can't think of anyone that was a greater influence than Malcolm X, bar none. And so after that defeat, after a government assault that attacked young revolutionary forces on the ground in virtually every community, certainly every urban community in this country, who went door to door in housing projects and organized Black people, organized free breakfast for school children programs, not as some kind of charity, but to build a revolutionary base among the most oppressed sectors of the African working class. They succeeded in destroying that movement and assassinating leaders. 1 year alone, the United States government arrested something like 300 members of the Black Panther Party. And I mentioned the Black Panther Party only because it was one of the best known organizations, and only because of, despite whether you were a Panther or not, the Black Panther Party represented the revolutionary center in this country at that particular time. I was not a Panther, but everybody was influenced by the existence of the Black Panther Party and what they were doing on the ground. and how they immobilized and radicalized the most oppressed sector of our population. Was no professors and significance of your local preacher and what have you. It was the young Africans walking around with the Black Panther Party newspaper and organizing people in our communities. That's who did it. That's who took the sickle cell anemia testing program from door to door in the most oppressed sectors in our community. There was no hospitals, there was your local clinics and what have you. These were ordinary African people who had been relegated to a life with no future until they were introduced to the revolution. And they crushed that movement. And when they crushed that movement, and when I say crushed it, I mean that literally. And I also want to say that the Black Revolution of the 60s, we were a front in this country, but they crushed us everywhere. They overthrew Nkrumah in 1966. They murdered Patrice Lumumba, cut him up and put him into a barrel of acid and what have you. The United States government did that. And they were killing us all around the world. And in October 9th, 1967, they wounded and captured Che Guevara and assassinated him in Bolivia. So there was a whole movement to wipe out the revolution and to replace the revolution with counter-revolutionary forces and various opportunists who pretended to be revolution, used revolutionary language. They were opposed to the revolution when it was alive, and then they became pseudo-revolutionaries after the revolution was crushed. And our people had to overcome all of that. In the absence of that, now revolution sounds strange to people. People like to reflect on, wow, the Panthers this and the Panthers that. But one of the things that made the Panthers significant is that they were a revolutionary organization on the ground with the intent to capture political power, not just to talk about it, but to take it. And that was a fundamental thing. Now revolution becomes out of style. And then we have been in this place where we in the community have been sold out over and over and over again. We had forgotten how to trust each other. And our experiences have taught us that often we couldn't trust each other. So we built this coalition in the wake of all of that. In the wake of all these attacks to split us up, to keep us from being able to unite around principle. We built this coalition. And we've existed going on 9 years now. September will be the 9th year of our existence. And one of the reasons that we were able to say Black is back, it was a statement to the government that you failed. That despite the fact that you crushed the revolution, it lives. Malcolm lives in us, and the revolutionary movement lives in us. Lumumba lives, and Nkrumah lives in us. Black is back. Black is back. We like Christmas past, so to speak. Or is that Christmas future? Which one bows Christmas future, right? So Black is back. And it's really important. So we come together, we're learning how to trust each other. And initially we get together and somebody says something wrong, you know, it was hard to hold a coalition together. That's been a difficult thing under the circumstances, right? And then we started to know each other. At least we have a little assumption that we can have some kind of trust. We organized ourselves around some principles of unity so that we struggle really hard so that the personality didn't become the dominant thing. That the principles of unity are what hold us together. And that's been important. And we also did not make the mistake that I've seen made so often with formations that call themselves coalitions and Black United Fronts, but we're not coalitions and United Fronts at all. They were single organizations that started out, they called themselves coalitions, but they were not coalitions. And so what you had is these groups that call themselves coalitions, and they call themselves fronts, Black United Fronts. They were single organizations. And this thing that has been able to work in part because we have not attempted to be a substitute for anybody's organization. Yes. You come in here as an organization or as individuals who can join a working group. And that's important because I belong to an organization. But there are organizations with a different ideology than what I have. We need to have the ability to work together whether we have the same ideology or not. That's right. That's why the issue of principles of unity are so important. And as opposed to me attempting to have somebody carry out the agenda for the African People's Socialist Party. The African People's Socialist Party has to be competent to carry out its own agenda. And we are competent to carry out our own agenda, but we can go into relationships with others based on these principles of unity. We've come up with a broad-based set of principles and I think it's really important for us to say who we are. And we say these principles of unity mean that we oppose to colonialism, neo-colonialism, Zionism, military occupation, and the undeclared U.S. war on African people. 2, we believe in equal democratic representation and voting rights of the organizations within the Black is Back coalition. 3, we respect the ideological differences between the organizations of the coalition. 4, we resolve our disagreements through a democratic voting process. 5, we stand in solidarity with worldwide anti-imperialist resistance. 6, we believe in self-determination for Africans worldwide and all oppressed peoples. 7, we believe in reparations to African people from the colonial imperialist powers of the world. Those are the principles of unity. We haven't attempted to impose any other principles on somebody that would place certain kinds of restrictions of them to be able to function inside this organization. They're broad enough, and I think they include enough anti-imperialist components and rights for self-determination that makes this coalition one of the things that makes this coalition workable. Workable. And we will not allow it to try to become a substitute for anybody's organization. But we've done incredible work, even though we come in as different organizations, institutions, and personalities. You heard a part of it today. When we talk about these comrades who have run for office, this coalition organized, first of all, through more than a year-long process, going through conventions in something like 10 different states and the District of Columbia. We held conventions to construct a national Black political agenda for self-determination. We say we have to have that because one of the missing elements is everybody's for self-determination. What the hell does it mean, right? So let's define it. Let's put it together. Let's make it concrete. And so that we can hold ourselves and others accountable to this agenda because we need an agenda. That's right. So we pull it together. And I think that's really important. And then what we said was, because so many people have been fascinated by the electoral process, have been convinced that the electoral process is the only way that you can move to power. So let's then set up schools so that we can train ordinary working class and other people how to participate in the electoral process. First of all, let's destroy the mysticism around that. Some people think elections in the Bible, see? So we have to go through all the books of the Bible and see, it's not in there, right? That's really important for us to do. Right? And that's why we had one of our events said something about peace through revolution, right? And we said the ballot and the bullet. Malcolm X was a little ambiguous. we said the ballot and the bullet, right? And this is what this coalition has done. And we did schools 2 years in a row. And then you've seen the consequence of the national Black political agenda already, just in this meeting. You've heard people talk about it. You've heard people in Orlando who are running for office. You heard people here who in St. Louis who ran for office on that 19-point platform. You will hear from people from St. Petersburg, Florida, who ran for office on that platform. And we are the ones who are putting reparations on the ballot and having to make them fight on the ballot around the question of Black reparations. I think that's super important. And that puts Africans on the offensive again, because we've been put on the defensive because white people convinced us that white America that we have lived off the welfare of white people, and they talk about they're different, and white people have lived off the welfare of African people for more than 500 years. So we help to take the people off the defensive and put us back on the offensive. So I think that's really important. And this coalition came into existence at a critical time when this man, Baraka, Hussein, yes, I'm going to call him Hussein. I know you're saying insane, but he wasn't insane. I wish it was a simple question like he was crazy, but he wasn't crazy. He was crazy like a fox. You know, he was crazy like a rabid fox. R-A-B-I-D, fox. And it was a critical time because Obama came in and bamboozled with his pimp limp. Anybody here know what a pimp? Know what a pimp limp is? Came in with his pimp lip, right? And his left hand jump shot, and Al Green imitation, etc. And Africans thought he was one of us. But Glen told me a long time ago, I don't know if you remember, he said, Obama is a white man. That's what Glen said. But anyway, that's one of his most eloquent statements, the most eloquent statement I can't say in public for a number of reasons. But that was a critical point in time because we identified Obama early on and started moving to try to alert people, struggle around them. And then we met Glen Ford and Nellie Bailey. And Glen, you know, who was debating anybody, anybody, you know, he had a lineup. Anybody who wanted to debate on this question of Obama, and he was taking them on and destroying them, wiping them out. And we said, we like this guy. So he was one of the people. And there were others who, you know, we felt it was really important, and we came together to form this coalition. That was one aspect of it. Another aspect of this question of the coalition is because this whole so-called peace movement, the whole so-called anti-war movement, the whole so-called anti-imperialist movement has been white-dominated since they crushed our movement. And that's been important because we don't need somebody else, I think perhaps it was Sister Betty, defining the reality for us. And we don't need anybody defining reality in the world that we exist in. We have to say something about this world. And we say that anytime you can have a movement that delegitimizes our struggle by talking about peace and war everywhere in the world and don't talk about it in St. Louis, there's something wrong with that. You know, there's something wrong with that. That if you are willing to lay down to keep a tank from rolling stuff because it might go to El Salvador, then you need to be able to lay down in front of a police car in the precinct that's leaving some place that's coming out of Brooklyn, New York. If you can't do that, I don't even want to hear your discussion. And for them to be able to go out into the world and say that they represent a struggle against imperialism, they represent a struggle for peace, and they can't recognize, they can't say anything about Africa. They can't say anything about Haiti. They can't say anything about what's happening to black people, what's happening to the indigenous people on the reservations. They don't say anything about the Mexican people who had their land stolen from them and now an artificial border drawn in there called illegal aliens. You can't say anything about that. You're not about peace. So what they were doing is defining imperialist peace. We're not interested in having an imperialist peace. We're not interested in having peace on the plantation. We want to destroy the damn plantation. That's the kind of peace that we're looking for. And so we said we have to intervene in this. And we have had a serious impact on the so-called peace movement, the so-called anti-war movement. Now they have to be able to say, not just some kind of peace someplace else. They like to say now in peace at home. They mean here in this country when they say that. The coalition is responsible for that. They weren't saying that before. We criticized from this platform. We couldn't get them to come out. We're talking about now in November, we're going to go to Washington, D.C. For this traditional rally and march on the White House and conference that we have. We tell the whole peace movement that we're going to do that. They don't show up. They send 3 people. They brag about being the largest peace movement in the country, and their lily white asses never show up to support black people saying that we want peace that against all of the war that's being made against African people here and around the world. They won't show up. And so you're going to show up or we're going to keep talking about you. You understand? And we're going to delegitimize you. You can't delegitimize the people who created Malcolm X. You can't delegitimize the people from whom Lumumba and Nkrumah came from. You can't delegitimize the people who gave rise to Dessalines and who gave rise to the Black Panther Party and the Black Revolution of the 60s. How the hell do you stand up, having just come from your libraries, to tell us who's legitimate and who's not legitimate? No. We are the ones who are passing out certificates of legitimacy today. No, those days are over when you say whether we are legitimate or not. And we're bold enough to say it. So that's why it was really important for us to get involved in this. Because we got people rotting. Rotting. That's what Ralph is talking about. That's what Betty in penitentiaries right now. And you don't hear anything coming from the so-called peace movement, the so-called end-time pluralism. What do they have to say? Nothing. Have nothing to say about it. 54 schools closed in Chicago. Where is the anti-imperialists? Where are the people who are about peace? They don't say anything about it. We are on our own. And we have to come to terms with that. And we define what your relationship is going to be to us, not you. We define what your relationship is going to be to the revolution, not you. How the hell can the colonizer tell us to colonize what is truly a revolutionary movement or not? It doesn't work that way. I don't care how radical a colonizer is. The colonizer has nothing to say about how we legitimize you. You don't legitimize us. That's the way that has to be. So we have to build this struggle, this whole movement. And look, brothers and sisters, I was just, flipping channels the other day, and this thing popped up about Africans who were in prison in Louisiana. And I think they said that in Louisiana, there's a prison population of something like 40,000 people. In prison in Louisiana. And this country has the largest prison population in the world. Yeah. Which means that Louisiana is the prison, the center of world imprisonment in Louisiana. Then they showed this Iberia parish and how in this one parish, I can't even call a white man names because, he's ordinary. He's mundane, who's ubiquitous. He's everywhere. He's every white man, more or less. And this guy is the sheriff, and they have these prisoners. And I'm looking at this picture, and they're showing how the guards are standing around. They got this brother on the ground, and they got these dogs. They're in this area that's supposed to be, where Reparations or something in the joint. And they got this brother on the ground. They got these dogs. They got these dogs attacking this African man. You got some Africans standing around, his pants almost off of him because the dogs are eating him up. And because this thing was caught on video and it went viral, somebody put it out, then the Justice Department intervened. And they took this guy to a federal trial. A federal trial. They put him on a federal trial. They had something like 15 or more of the guards who worked in the joint, white guards, who now feel the heat of the feds, and so they turned against the guy and testified in court that he did it. And then he went to trial and was found not guilty. And the people who went to jail was the guards who testified because in testifying against him, they confessed on themselves. You understand? And so the guy got no time. In the same time I'm learning this, we have an Uhura house in St. Petersburg, Florida, and there's a sister who works at our front desk. And a comrade was talking to her. He just happened to tell me this. And he said that her son, she was upset. Her son was 16 years old. She just was when he went to prison. He went to prison 16 years for armed robbery, 3 taxi cab drivers. They gave him 65 years in prison. They gave him 65 years, 16 years old. They gave him 65 years in prison. But yeah, I don't have to tell you what happened to a 16-year-old boy when he goes into that joint. Do you understand? And then he ends up getting stabbed 27 times at one juncture while he's in prison. I wish I could say that this was strange, but it's mundane. It's the kind of stuff that happens to us every day of our existence. And we are the only ones who are going to say that we have to have a movement on the ground because these civil-tongued politicians, these persons who now occupy these seats, political seats and whatever, they are not going to say. They don't say, don't gentrify the African community. They don't say reparate. They don't say any of this stuff that's happening to our people. So this coalition is absolutely necessary. And this 19-point platform is absolutely necessary. I just want to say this, that Africans are being killed everywhere. And I want to say this, we have different views in the coalition around the question of Africa and who we are and that kind of stuff. But Africa, it's indisputable that all of us came from Africa. Every black person on the planet Earth came from Africa. We can say it about other people, but I'm talking about Africans. I'm talking about what we recognize as Africans today. All of us came from Africa. And that we wouldn't be fighting justification in St. Louis if the Portuguese hadn't attacked Africa in the 1400s and began to trade in black people that created a social system that we know as capitalism. We wouldn't be struggling in St. Louis. Wouldn't be any Mike Brown down there. You understand? But they have robbed Africa of us and all the resources and continue to rob Africa every day. They're stealing everything from Africa. And one of the most active war fronts in the world today is on the continent of Africa. And the United States is right in the middle of all of it. The secret ops, special operation forces are all over the continent of Africa, killing black people. You got a sense of that. I think it was it December of last year when you heard about LaDavid Johnson and the other 3 special op troops who were killed in Nigeria. Most people didn't even know there were troops, U.S. troops in Nigeria. Most people in this country don't know where the hell Nigeria is, for that matter. You understand? But these are troops there, and you got a hint of it. But what is happening is the United States government is involved in war against black people all around the continent of Africa. That's something we have to be concerned about because ain't nobody else going to say nothing about it. Let me tell you this. That when you see the United States government had to move in this country when they started locking up Muslims all around the country. Remember that? They're locking up secret trials, shipping them out and everything. Nobody knew where they were. You know why they had to do that? Because their foreign policy objectives in the Middle East. They were getting ready to rape and murder and maim all over the Middle East, and they knew that they were going to have to fight those Muslims no matter where they existed on the planet Earth. But they didn't have to worry about that, about us. You understand? They need to have to fight us on every front. You can't attack Africa, and then Africans still walking around, not engaged in that struggle. If we don't raise the question of Africa, nobody will. And Africa, it's more than some charitable expression. Because Africa has been looted. Now, think about this. They have been looting Africa for more than 500 years. And they're still looting it. Every punk capitalist on the make, first place they go is Africa. It's not everybody, all of them got Africa plans. Canada, US, England, Germany, France, all got Africa plans. Now China is the biggest force there. Now you got Turkey, India, all of them eating at Africa, and we're running from Africa. Running from Africa. And Africa ain't never done nothing to us. You should be running from those who done something to you. Don't run from Africa. Ain't that right? If it wasn't for Africa, you wouldn't have them lips. If it wasn't for Africa, you'd be bootyless. That'd be a hell of an existence, wouldn't it? I mean, just think about that. That's something worth thinking about, man. So, but my point is that this coalition, this thing, there's no peace. And we say this because it's not like an insinuation that some of us think there is peace. It's not that we think there is peace, but it's a statement that, first of all, that it reminds us, and it reminds all these other people who call themselves anti-war and peaceniks, etc. There is no peace. And we say the reason we say there is no peace is because Africa and Africans are at war everywhere. Reverend Pinckney gonna tell us about that war, because they say that the way you go to power is go through elections and stuff like that. Pinckney did, they put him in jail. You understand? There is no peace, not for black people. Hasn't been any peace for African people for 500 years at least. Portugal came there 600 years ago. That's right. Has been no peace. And so we've been struggling since then. And this coalition helps to pull us all together. November 3rd and 4th. We're going to be back in Washington, D.C. That'll be a little easier now because Obama ain't there, Glenn. But one of the things that makes pulling the coalition together at that time so important, because a lot of people came to the coalition who didn't hang with us. A lot of them came because they were Muslims and what have you, and they were concerned about what was happening to Muslims and what have you. And this nice man, who was the second vice president of the NAACP, what state was that? North Carolina. North Carolina. He was a good man. And he stepped forward and tried to join. And when he said that he was part of the coalition, the right wing came from out of every crevice that you could imagine and attacked that man so hard and attacked the NAACP that he couldn't hang. And so some couldn't hang, but others couldn't join. And the reason I'm talking about communists, black communists. You know what I'm talking about, Glenn. I'm talking about black nationalists. I'm talking about black nationalists. I'm talking about people who said that they plan to have the new nation in charge of the new nation here. That's what they said. How the hell you gonna say you fighting to be the new republic and then concede to America because a black man is the president, concede the power to them? I mean, you jealous of power. You jealous of anybody contruding on your struggle for power. But none of them could come, and that was good. One of my dear friends, Kamm, I worked with since the 1960s. I called him up. One of the first people I called, Glen, after we got together and pulled the coalition, and called him up and said, we're going to have a march. We want you to join the coalition. We're going to march on Obama's White House. That brother spoke to me for more than 2 hours. I still don't know what the hell he said. I really don't. I'm not joking. If you knew it, I still don't know what the hell he said, except he wasn't going to join because they were working with Obama and working for Obama. And they saw Obama as the last thing that was keeping us free from fascism, right? Stuff like that. I told him Fannie Lou Hamer kept your ass, fascism off your ass. I'm telling those people who kept this society open was the civil rights movement in this country. At the time, they were trying to shut it down with McCarthy and all those other forces, black people who did that. And so, anyway, they wouldn't come. And one brother cussed me out, brother out of New York, just literally cussed me out. And he was for Obama, so he got him. All of us got him. But at least there was some place on earth in this country where somebody was trying to provide genuine leadership for the masses of our people. And this coalition was in the center of that. So I want to just thank you, everybody, because Africans are in a permanent state of warfare. And we think that it's a critical moment because the whole imperialist system is in a state of severe crisis. You can see it all around you. Many people don't understand exactly what they're seeing, but they know that they've never seen anything like this before. On every front, the split within the ruling class itself, the split within even the Trump administration split. What Trump says one thing and the state does another thing. You ever seen that? Trump says the Russians are cool, and then the state apparatus go and say, we're putting more sanctions on the Russians. Trump said, I want to get along with North Korea. And the vice president said, we're going to do North Korea just like we did Gaddafi and Libya and what have you, to bust up all of that. And so you got splits there. You got splits between the United States and other powers. You got them trying to overturn all the trade relationships that existed among the imperialist powers since for 70 years. And part of that is because everywhere around the world, peoples around the world are struggling to take back their freedom, take back their resources, and that's making the pie shrink for the imperialist forces. And so there is, what do you call it among thieves? There is no honor among these thieves. And so now they're fighting against each other. The Brexit and with England leaving the European Union, that just got $1 trillion from the European Union. You saw sent to all of these countries and stuff, and people are splitting. Italy is on the verge of splitting away from it. So crisis abounds everywhere. And that's notwithstanding all of the stuff that they're trying to do to our people in Venezuela. You see the war being made against Venezuela. You see the war that's been made against Nicaragua. All around the world, they're trying to reverse their fortunes, but the people are in motion, and there is no retreat. We will win this one, or we will perish. We say, black is back, damn it. Black is back.
Israel too. Africa. Touch one. Touch one. Black. Black. Oh, round of applause. Black is back, everybody. Yes. That was some fire on this mic. And you know what we say when we see fire in the streets? What we say? What we say? More fire? More fire? More fire? All right, all right. I saw some people didn't say more fire. I'm going to talk to you later. You want water or something? All right, y'all. So next we have up to this mic. This brother is serious, okay, about reporting. This brother makes me, erase everything off my laptop once I'm looking at different things and things. Because I'm like, if anything happens, this brother knows everything, okay? All right, brother Glen Ford. All right, you talk about research. He gonna find all the dirt. He gonna find everything. You thought your granddaddy was a good man. You thought he was a good man. He gonna find where the stains was, where your granddaddy went, where your grandma went to sleep. That's Glen Ford, okay? But thank God he on our side, so he's doing it for the white man. All right. All right. So next to the mic, we have a co-founder of the Black is Back Coalition, this amazing coalition. We have the senior editor of the Black Agenda Report. All right, y'all better read the Black Agenda Report. If you want that dirt on white power, if you want to know whose stain is it, all right? And here we have Comrade Glen Ford. Round of applause, everybody. Get on up. Get on up.
Power to the people. I assumed, and Chairman Omali assumed, that I was going to talk about the state of the U.S. war around the world, and somehow mix in part of our campaign, our material, that the U.S. Admonition to the world is comply with us or die. And I fully expected to do that, but I think every year I do that. I was going to talk about how the United States Special Ops Forces that the chairman was referring to are now about as large as the entire French army, and how in Africa, which had only about 1% of those special ops forces in 2008, which was when AFRICOM was formed, now has 16% of those 80,000 strong special ops forces. And I was going to talk about how Donald Trump and his administration are now threatening Venezuela with an outright military attack, and how that is quite feasible now that Brazil and Argentina have right-wing governments, and Ecuador, which used to be left-wing, is now a right-wing government. So when Trump's people talk about directly attacking Venezuela, that's not just selling wolf tickets. And I could talk about the coming war with Iran, which may not take the shape of fire and fury. I know Trump is talking fire and fury, but it may not take that shape. But I think that the withdrawals that they're talking about of special ops from Africa probably will be going to Iran to wage an undercover covert war, which we'll all know about. But since the U.S. will not admit it's waging it, we'll have to call that covert. So there's a lot to talk about in terms of the United States saying to the rest of the world, comply or die. But I'm not going to talk about that today because I, in the last week or so, decided that that Russiagate is a more important subject to talk about. And that Black Agenda Report, and that's the magazine that I edit, has a special responsibility to talk about Russiagate. Because when the Washington Post in November, right after the election in 2016, when they put on the front page a story at the center of which was a shadowy organization called Prop or Not, whose members the Washington Post allowed to remain anonymous. But Prop or Not had a list of organizations and websites that it said were dupes, witting or unwitting of the Russians, and should be investigated in terms of their loyalties by organs of the United States. We, Black Agenda Report, were the only Black site on the net named by those right-wing folks. So we have a special responsibility and an interest to talk about Russiagate. But I was a little bit worried about talking about Russiagate because since everybody hears Russiagate 24/7, you may think that you know what Russiagate is. Well, maybe you do. Some of y'all real smart and know everything. But I think most of us don't, because this thing called Russiagate is morphing over time. It's not the same Russiagate that it started out as. It in fact is becoming even more dangerous, more insidious, and it really dawned on me about a week ago how that morphing, that evolving of Russiagate, where it is going. And it's a very, very dangerous place for all of us, especially for radical Black activists. It is most dangerous to us. And so I want to take my time this afternoon to talk about that evolution of Russiagate and the special kind of danger that it presents to the Black liberation movement. For 2 years or so, the ruling class has been furiously attempting to change the rules on what can and cannot be spoken in the United States. This is what Russiagate is really about. Now, in doing so, they have not yet changed any laws. They haven't outlawed anti-capitalist speech, so we can continue saying anti-capitalist things. They haven't outlawed anti-imperialist speech, or else Chairman Omali would be in jail already. They haven't outlawed anti-white supremacist speech. In fact, corporate Democrats use anti-white supremacist speech all the time. So that's okay. They still say that we have free speech in the United States, but there's a caveat to that. You have free speech as long as what you say doesn't sound like what they say a Russian might say. And if they catch you talking like what they say a Russian sounds like, they reserve the right to ban everything that comes out of your mouth. Everything that you write or say, they reserve the right to ban you from saying that on the electronic media. That is how far we have already come. Since virtually all communications now in the United States is filtered through the internet, and since the internet is owned and operated and managed and policed by a few giant corporations, the new rules that these corporations are talking about, not laws, because governments promulgate laws, but rules that are promulgated by these few huge corporations that own the internet. These new rules can be used to shut down everybody's right to effectively speak and communicate with everybody else. I'm not talking about outlawing free speech. I'm talking about their ability to shut down effectively our actual speech. In many ways, these new Russiagate rules are more insidious. They are more dangerous than the old rules of the McCarthy era. People keep on talking about Russiagate, new McCarthyism. I'm saying that in some ways it is more insidious and potentially dangerous even than the McCarthy era. Back in the McCarthy era, they tried to label all dissent in the United States as communists. That's how they tried to shut down the nascent civil rights movement. That's how they cleaned out the most effective organizers in the labor movement. They called people communists and looked in your background to see if they could hook you up with somebody who once was a member of the Communist Party or something like that. So they smeared folks for being associated with communists. But if they couldn't do that, then they had to bake something up, or they were frustrated in putting a blacklist. But today's Russiagate is quite different because Soviet Union is gone and Russia is a capitalist system. They've got billionaire oligarchs just like in the United States. So in order to be labeled pro-Russian, you don't have to have a combination of red flag words like socialism or imperialism, or say words that they think make you sound like a communist, or words like solidarity. To label somebody as a person who sounds like a Russian, all you have to do is say something that sounds like something that Putin might have said, or that somebody, and I mean anybody, might have said on Russia Today. Russia Today is a 24-hour news agency. And anything that's said on Russia Today, and sometimes I'm on Russia Today, anything that's said on Russia Today, if repeated by you or you say it independently, can be proof that you are getting your cues, your orders, your marching orders, that you're getting your script from the Russians. That's bad enough, but it's even worse than that. The new Russiagate rules of speech have been evolving since that week in November when Papa Knott put Black Agenda Report on their list. Russiagate started out with the claim that the Russian government and the Trump campaign and WikiLeaks all conspired together. They colluded to steal emails from the Clinton campaign organization. Hillary Clinton was said to have been so embarrassed by those emails, which didn't tell anything but the truth, that it cost her the election. And then after that, the story about Russiagate goes, they used those embarrassing emails to force Clinton, to force her defeat. This collusion between the Trump campaign and WikiLeaks and the Russian government is the predicate crime, as they put it, of Russiagate. That is how all of this started. And the effort was supposed to be to prove this predicate crime and then make the Trump government illegitimate. And I'm sure a bunch of Democrats thought that somehow after this process, Hillary Clinton would somehow wind up in the White House. The problem is that there was no proof and there is no proof that this collusion, the predicate crime, ever happened. And there's no proof because it didn't happen. The Republicans stole the election of 2016, and they did that all by themselves. And they did it the same way that the Republicans stole the election in 2000 and 2004. And the way they stole those 3 elections in the 21st century is by suppressing the black vote. And everybody saw it when it happened. It wasn't done under cover of night. We were all talking about it. Many of us were raising hell about it. We understood exactly what was happening. Of course, the Democrats just took the loss because there's a gentleman's agreement between the two capitalist duopoly parties that it's all right to suppress the black vote. Even if they lose an election, they're not going to go to bat for the black vote because that's not important. All right, so they get away with it. Well, that's what happened this time around as well. There was nothing strange about this 2016 election. The Republicans stole it the old-fashioned way. The suppressed votes, the missing black votes in Detroit alone were many times the number of Trump's winning margin in Michigan. They're the reason that Trump won Michigan. The same damn thing happened in Milwaukee. That is, the black voter suppression in Milwaukee was bigger than Trump's margin of victory in Wisconsin. In Ohio, 500,000 people were purged from the rolls because of the cross-check program. If your name was Johnson and somebody else named Johnson moved out of the state, so he's not supposed to be able to vote, your name could get purged from the rolls. And so the largest percentage of those, proportion of those who got purged from the rolls in Ohio were black voters. And that was way, way, way more than Trump's margin of victory in Ohio. So it's just clear by the numbers that this election was stolen, not by some collusion between Trump's campaign and the Russian government and WikiLeaks. That's all a fantasy. It's unnecessary. He'd already won by the usual means, which was theft of black votes. The Russians had nothing to do with it. But on election night, the same night, John Lewis, who's supposed to be the Lord in terms of black voter participation in the Congressional Black Caucus, that night that Trump stole the election, John Lewis is on television talking about the Russians, the Russians, the Russians. He said nothing about black voter suppression. We have to understand the depth of that kind of betrayal by the blackness leadership class. Here we have a virulent white supremacist who has just stolen the White House, just like George Bush stole the White House. Stole the White House by negating the black vote. But instead of defending black voting rights, the Black Caucus blamed it on the Russians. But again, there was no proof that the Russians had anything to do with it. The hand-picked intelligence community representatives, it was never a consensus among all the intelligence agencies, but they picked some agents as a kind of committee, and they came up with what they called a consensus on whether the Russians had anything to do with the election. They said by their consensus assessment, they believed that they did. But they also said in that report that they had no proof that they did. We just are kind of convinced. They couldn't prove anything. They never put forth or claimed that they could prove anything. Nobody ever said that they had evidence that the Russians used electronic means to alter even one vote in 2016. Although if you read the Washington Post and the New York Times and you watch CNN and MSNBC, you'd swear that there's all kinds of evidence that it happened. There is not one bit of evidence, and no election board anywhere in the country says that there is any evidence. They also all say the exact opposite. But the corporate news media, which is the spokesperson for the ruling class, keeps on ginning this up so that the public naturally, innocently, does assume that they're about to turn up something that will show how the statements that America is at war and Russia did a Pearl Harbor on the United States. I mean, if they're using those kind of words, there must be something to it, and they're going to turn up some of this evidence very quickly. but they haven't turned up any evidence, and it's been about 2 years. And since these investigations have found nothing, the people who are at the heart of the Russiagate offensive, and that is the ruling class, and that is the so-called intelligence community, and that is, of course, the Democratic Party. Those people have had to switch gears. The Russiagate has now gone into a new phase, the phase that we're at now. They found that some Russian company with an office in St. Petersburg. I used to say Leningrad, because it used to be Leningrad. But that must be, I must be a stooge in a toady.
Sound like Russia to me.
Sound like Russia to me. So there's some oligarch who they say knows Putin, has an office in Petersburg that Facebook says, after doing a big investigation under great pressure, by the way, Facebook found that this Russian company had bought about $100,000 in ads over a 2-year period. And when that got to the Washington Post and the New York Times and CNN, smoking gun. Now we know how the Russians were undermining the U.S. electoral system. But that's $100,000. During that same period, the Republicans and the Democrats had bought tens of millions of dollars in ads from Facebook. So $100,000 is just a drop in a bucket compared to that. Even if these were real campaign ads or political ads, as a reasonable person would understand them. But it turns out that the vast majority of these ads had nothing to do with the election. They didn't say anything about Trump. They didn't say anything about about Clinton. And many of them were about furry little animals like puppies and kittens. And those articles that were part of the ads that the Russian company bought were ranged across the entire political spectrum. They weren't left or right or center as framed here in this country. They were all over the place. So there were articles that were against immigrant rights. There were articles that were for immigrant rights. There were right-wing, white supremacist type articles that denounced black protests. And there were other articles that were pro-Black Lives Matter. And there were lots of other articles that were just so innocuous you couldn't even call them political, but had what they call human rights appeal, and were clearly designed just to get people to click so that somebody in Petersburg could get paid. So there was nothing there. There was no smoking gun of any kind. It wasn't even a toy gun. It was nothing. So they had to switch gears on Russiagate again. Remember, there's no predicate crime, and now there's no smoking gun with propaganda that would sway the American public during election time. So now they have to switch gears again. And that brings us to the current most dangerous phase of Russiagate. The new line of propaganda, because that is all you read from the New York Times and the Washington Post on this Russiagate subject. It is pure, the purest propaganda. The new line of propaganda is that the Russian war against America, that their tactic has been to exacerbate already existing splits in U.S. society. So they're not going to do anything novel. The people who hate each other, they're going to make each other hate each other more. And that's the trick. And somehow the Russians are diabolical like that. The claim is that the Russians want to amplify and make more intense all of the arguments that people in the United States have been having with each other forever. In other words, the Russians, according to this line of propaganda, are mimicking all the voices of dissent in the United States and amplifying those voices. They're mimicking the right wing to sound like Alex Jones. They're mimicking the black protesters to sound like Black Lives Matter, or to sound like anybody in the black radical political sphere, to sound like Brother Omali. And so under these new rules of Russiagate, you don't have to sound like a Russian to be accused of being an unwitting dupe of the Russians. Since the Russians are supposedly mimicking all the voices of dissent, all you have to do to be involved in a conspiracy with the Russians is to sound like your damn self. You don't have to do anything at all to be charged with collusion. Now, this is not George Orwell's Brave New World. This is not 1984. This is something entirely different. This is Catch 22. And you can't win with Catch 22. What this means is that all dissent in the United States, all of it, can be tainted as part of Russia's war against America, and can be therefore banned from the internet by Google and Facebook and the other US oligarch internet corporations. So you should not be happy that Alex Jones, that right-winger, got kicked off of his platforms, because the bell that tolls for Alex Jones tolls for all of us. And since this is America, that means the bell tolls most loudly for black radicals. I know Alex Jones is a millionaire, and he's got some platforms right now to take the place of those he's been kicked off of. We don't have platform to piss in, all right? They've introduced a new element, and a very dire one, into Russiagate now. And they just did this last week, which is why I decided to talk about Russiagate and not comply or die. That new tool of corporate censorship is hate speech. Alex Jones didn't get kicked off of his platforms for telling lies, although Alex Jones tells a lot of lies. He didn't get kicked off his platforms for spinning conspiracy theories, although almost the entirety of what he offers is conspiracy theories. But Apple and Google did not penalize him for lying. They didn't penalize him for conspiracy theories. They said that he was engaging in hate speech, and they said that he was using dehumanizing language. So now, under these new rules, which are only a week old, not only is all dissent grouped under Russiagate as aiding and abetting Putin, that is, under the old new rules, since the Russians mimic us, everybody who argues with other Americans is playing into the hands of the Russians, who want Americans to argue with each other more. So every time you start an argument, that is every time you have a political conversation, because that's what political conversations are, you're helping the Russian. All right, that's under the new rules that have now been superseded by last week's new rules. So not only are you helping the Russians by engaging in any kind of political dissent, now you cannot engage in what they call hate speech. And it's up to them to decide what hate speech is. But we know that what it really means is that every demonstration against killer cops can be construed as hate speech. And of course it can, because we really do hate killer cops. And we will always hate killer cops. Diop was committing hate speech for his whole presentation earlier today. And right on for that. We can't use dehumanizing language, which means pig is out. And we can't, not only can we not call a cop a pig, we can't call a banker a pig, we can't call a war criminal a pig, we can't call anybody a pig because that's dehumanizing. By this definition, every conference of the Black is Back Coalition is filled with hate speech and should not be allowed to go on Apple or Google or these other internet companies. That means if we are streaming now, we are in trouble. It doesn't yet mean that we can't go on radio because that's the FCC. It's not a private corporation, but certainly they'll get to that very soon too. Most people in the United States, including many Black activists, assume that Russia is all about Trump and all about the Democrats. They think that all of this nonstop, never-ending obsession with Russiagate will end, and that it will end either when Trump is impeached or if he's voted out of office in 2020, or at the very, very latest at the end of his second term. But they think that once Trump is gone, since Russiagate is really about Trump and Russia, then things will return to normal. But they are absolutely wrong. Russiagate has gotten very good to the powers that be. It's true that Trump's surprise election set the stage for the anti-Russian hysteria that we call Russiagate. That's because the ruling class didn't trust the unpredictable Trump to continue U.S. military offensives in Syria. They didn't trust that he would continue the U.S. alliance with Islamic jihadists, including Al-Qaeda in Syria. They didn't trust that Trump would honor the so-called free trade agreements that allow the free flow of money and the free flow of jobs everywhere in the world. So Trump was just too unpredictable, and they had to do something about him. But there's more to it than that. It's not like the rulers don't have their own problems. Their recipe for the future, the only thing that they offer the people of the United States is endless war and eternal permanent austerity. If all you're offering the people is endless war and permanent austerity, then you cannot tolerate dissents, because you have no intention of ameliorating the pain that permanent austerity creates. They have no intention of coming to the rescue of those classes of people whose living standards are falling every year. And that is a majority of the people. And they have no intention of ending their endless wars. They call them infinite wars now. They talk about generational wars. And since the war in Iraq, it has been 15 years. It's almost a generation already. Looks like they're going for 2 generations. And the reason that they're not going to end these endless wars is because the United States is in decline economically and cannot compete in the world. And the only advantage that it has is its military. And so it has to use that military. It has to maintain some kind of discipline in the world and create a level of terror and fear in the world in order to stop a precipitate slide in the United States position in the world. So they're not giving up austerity and war, and that requires that they crack down on dissent. There's no room in the new world order as far as the rulers are concerned. There's no room for dissenting voices, for peace, or voices for transformation at home. So the watchword for U.S. imperialism at home and abroad is comply or die. That's all they have to say to you. They don't negotiate anymore. They don't offer carrots and sticks because they can't afford no carrot, and all they got is a stick. Russiagate is important here. You have to understand it in the context of imperialism, of capitalism in decline, and not offering anything but austerity and war. Russiagate is giving these rulers the tools for them to handle, they think, this new world order. It has supplied them with this catch-22 under which we can't win, whereby activists' rhetoric can be banned as hate speech, and all dissent can be categorized as helping the Russians, who are, of course, forever trying to make war on the United States. The rulers would never give up such tools just because Trump leaves office. Why would they do that? The censorship and increased repression has just begun. It's not just about Trump. It's not just about Democrats' war with Trump or about Democrats wanting to get right back into the White House. That's because permanent austerity will come down most hard on Black people in the United States, and permanent war will be waged mostly in the Black and brown regions of the world. And so the political repression will be most intense against Black and brown people here in the United States and around the world. But we in the Black is Back Coalition know what our mission is in this new world order. We're not taking one step back. If they escalate, we're going to escalate. But all that goes without saying. However, as the rulers escalate their assaults, and they're making assaults on the language itself these days, as they try to describe liberation speech as hate speech, we at the Black is Back Coalition have to double down on our own language, which is the language of self-determination. That's our project. That's our mission. Self-determination for our people. And I think that one of the most important things that this coalition has done, besides being a place where Blacks who were not pro-Obama could find some solidarity and companionship. But in addition, and that was important, that we did that. But I think that the promulgation of that 19-point national Black agenda for self-determination was one of the most important things we've ever done. It is an historical document in the Black liberation struggle, and I think history is going to recognize it as such. We have to make that document a working document. We got to work with its principles, and those principles are designed to guide us in almost every arena of the people's struggle. We've got to make the document live, and we got to make that document shout, and we've got to make it move people. That's how we're going to overcome the cacophony of confusion that is Russiagate. That's how we're going to beat back this new order that they want to impose. And they are very quick to impose it. They are anxious to impose it because they know even better than we do that we're in the dying days of capitalism. And they want to stop the coming of that dark night. Power to the people.
Hurrah! Hurrah! They say comply or die, and we say fist up. Fist up. You can't say that chant with your fist not being up. It don't make no sense. So I say fist up. Fist up. Now with your chest. Fist up. Fist up. All right, round of applause for Comrade Glen Ford. That is a detective. Oh, that's a detective. He went all up in there. Thank you so much for that, brother. Thank you so much. Now we're going to get ready for a powerful panel. We're going to have together, can you pass me that paper real quick, sister? A powerful panel. All right, y'all. Then after the panel, we have questions and answers. So we're going to ask for people to, start getting their questions ready. Oh, Chairman, you want to say something real quick?
Yeah, just quick.
All right, Chairman, going to bless the people real quick.
Uhuru. I just think that even with the few presentations we've had up to now, we have had an opportunity to demonstrate the seriousness of these times that we live and struggle in. And one of the things that in that last steering committee meeting, we raised the question of how these social media platforms were shutting down access to African people, even trying to boost some of the messages that have come from the coalition. Facebook refused to allow us to do it. And so what we're faced with now is not the newness of the phenomenon is perhaps the specific intent that's associated with shutting down. But we've never had any such thing as free speech. And the media, the bourgeois media, has always been determined not to allow any meaningful speech from our movement, from our struggle to be heard. And the thing is that with one sector of the bourgeois media suffering so seriously, and now many people felt like we were going to be able to do things with social media that we couldn't do with the print media and with TV and stuff like that, I think it's a wake-up call. And I do believe that, as Comrade Glen mentioned, this national black political agenda for self-determination is critical for us to advance because it does advance the question of self-determination. But I think increasingly what we are being driven to understand is that nobody's going to hand freedom to us. And we are not going to be able to talk our way out of this thing. That actual revolutionary struggle is going to be necessary for our people to be free. And that I just wanted to say that. The other thing I want to mention is the significance of the coalition with the 19 points and all the other work we've done is, again, it hasn't tried to tell any of the organizations that are associated with the coalition exactly what to do, anything like that, but we've created a forum and a capacity for any organization to take the information that we provided, and we've actually voted on some things like this 19-point platform. We didn't just vote on it within the coalition, we took it out among the people, like I said, to 10 different states and the District of Columbia to have this discussion. So we spread this word out and we armed many forces so that in wherever you are, in whatever community you're working in, you are better informed. Your struggle is better informed. And not only is it better informed, it is a struggle that is happening in unity, harmony with other fronts of the movement that express themselves through the coalition and the work of the coalition. So I just want to say that, and thank you very much. And we're going to get to this incredible part of our agenda. And this is, how is it titled? War Through the Electoral Process. And we felt like it was important to do this because everybody up here has engaged in some way or another with the electoral process. And it's important because our community is told over and over again that the only meaningful participation in politics is through the electoral process. And what this panel will help us to understand is that we are at war on this front as well. And being at war is not simply against the opponent that we might be running against, but a system that is determined to prevent African people from moving forward, even using the electoral process. So they will close every door if they can. I think there's a lot that we can learn here, and I just want to turn it over now, and Sister Lisa is going to be the person who moderates this discussion. Uhuru. All right.
Thank you all so much, and I also want to thank Glen for that very empowering, enlightening presentations. Only thing I got to say is you all go to YouTube now, download Ghazi's videos, because you know they're going to be disappearing. Go to Facebook, download, make sure you get them. And I always thought the biggest threat that the Russians posed to the American politics was through Russian vodka, but, you know, I guess I'm wrong with that, but it seems like they've been drinking enough of that as it is, literally. Anyway, we want to continue to keep this convention moving along, and so we're going to just go right to the very, very next important panel that we're having, and that's to deal with the electoral process. And that's really important because many of our people, so many of us, the only thing we ever hear is vote because your ancestors died so you could have the right to vote, and you better vote because that's what you have to do, and just vote for the lesser of two evils, and just vote because the Democratic Party, because you just vote. You know, they've been living off of the backs of dead Democrats for like the last 60 years. I don't think you should be able to use the reputation of any politician if they've been dead for at least 50 or 60 years, but you know, that's my opinion. But I never accepted that premise anyway, that our ancestors died for us to vote. Our ancestors died about much more than that. They died for our liberation, and voting was supposed to be just one aspect of trying to empower ourselves by putting people in office who would represent who we are. That's what they died for. They didn't die to just vote. They died for liberation. Big difference. But it's not to say that the voting process is something that should be ignored. I don't think that it should be. But I believe that we definitely have to take back our power, and we have to redefine this. And this is what this next panel is going to be about, talking about how they use some very revolutionary, very empowering strategies to, you know, to empower our people, to give our people a voice. And that is so important. So this next panel is called War Through the Electoral Process, and I do mean war through the electoral process. The presenters on this panel are going to be Reverend Edward Pinckney, who is with, it's amazing how much you know these people, but then you can't really speak too much about them without reading from this pamphlet. Thank you. I'm running on so little sleep. But Reverend Pinckney, he is with the Black Autonomy Network Community Organization. He also has a strong history with fighting Whirlpool in Benton Harbor, and he has been in prison and everything like that. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to read the panelists, and then we're going to, Sister Yeshitela, are you still here with the time? Oh. Okay, this sister right here. And then you guys can follow her for the time. And then we can just go on and we'll have our questions and answers afterwards. So Reverend Pinckney will be the first presenter on this panel. The second presenter will be Zaki Baruti, who is local to the St. Louis area. Many of you already know him. He is with the Universal African Peoples Organization. He's been doing a lot of work on the ground too, and around the issue of electoral politics. And we will have Sister Akili Anai, who's with the African People's Socialist Party in Pidum too. In Pidum, Black is Back Coalition. And she was a part of a very, very revolutionary, very inspiring, very energizing campaign when she ran for city council, right, in St. Petersburg last year. And I remember when I first heard about this campaign, my attitude was, oh, that's so nice. I'm so glad they're going to give it a nice try. Oh, so nice, good, you know, go along, so glad. And I got to tell you, that just lit up and caught fire across the country. I was reading about their campaign and in the New York Times and all over Facebook and everything, and they brought issues. They put them they brought the issues. They made it a part of the campaign. Reparations for the people. They made that front and center. They were so effective with it that it drew out Barack Hussein Obama. And he came down and had to endorse the other candidate. Unfortunately, Brother Khalid Rahim, he is with the, hold on one second, a moment, please. I'm a little embarrassed by this, but y'all work with me. The African Independence Party, right? Yes, unfortunately, he will not be able to be here. And we thought that he could make a presentation for this, forum, but he was not able to do that. But he does have presentations that he has made before. I believe that we should be able to get some of the work he's already presented and make that available, you know, through the Black is Back Facebook page and the Black is Back website. But unfortunately, he will not be able to present, which means that our presenters will have a little bit more time. Initially, I thought it was going to be 20 minutes, but they will have about 25 minutes, and then maybe we could have, I think that would work to have 25 minutes for question and answers. I think that will work like that. But anyway, thank you so very much. And the first presenter, Reverend Pinckney. Right, 25 minutes and then 25 minutes question and answer. I think that will work.
Hello, everybody. You know, I'm excited to be here today. I tell you, this is truly a tremendous opportunity. You know, when we talk about the electoral process, it's a war. It's a war, and war is hell. In Michigan, they say comply or die, just like they say in these United States of America. You see, one of the things, my thing is recall. I would consider myself a professional recall. Either comply or get recalled. We can put you in and we can take you out. But you got to have that power to do so, and they have to know that you can do it. Anytime that you can take power away from the ruling class, you got power. Anytime that you could take power from the ruling class, you got power. Let me give you a short example. It used to take 180 days. You had 180 days to collect signatures in Michigan. We went out, got 5,000 signatures. It wasn't a lot, you know, but just 5,000 signatures. They decided that they were going to change the rule. Now, listen to this. They went to the legislators, the Senate, and the House to change the law. That now it's 90 days. So they said that that'll stop Reverend Pinckney. Because it's difficult to get people to sign, but that's my weapon. I use the recall to organize. I use the recall to get people together. I use the recall to register people to vote. And these are my people. They become mine, you know, and they listen. So the legislature decided that 90 days was too many days. We had went out and got 200 and it took 200,000 or so signatures for the Public Act 4 to be put on the ballot. And we went out and got those signatures. And we went out and got them in 90 days. They were not happy. They figured now the ruling class don't like it. You see, what we don't understand, the electoral process is a war. And what we fail to realize is hell. We don't do what we need to do. If we get out here and do what we're supposed to do, we can win. We can win. We're so busy doing so many other things, we can't win. We're so divided. We walk around here talking about who we can't work with. I can't work with you. You too tall. I can't work with you because you too short. I can't work with you because you too fat. I can't work with you because you too skinny. I can't work with you today because you wearing your red shoes. I can't work with you. We always find a reason not to work with somebody. And during this process, they know what they're doing. They're organized, you see. And I consider myself a person who knows how to organize people. So now, we're at 90 days. Now they want to cut it to 60. There goes back to the legislators and decided that 90 days was too many days. So they cut it to 60. So I goes to the House and I tell them that 60 days is too many days. I say, you need to cut it down about 15. Whoa, that's 15 already? Keep the change. Anyhow, let me get to my point. We had this young man, he was the city council. And we went out and recalled him. We recalled him because he was a Whirlpool supporter. He was giving away land for free. He was giving away land to this corporation, and he a black man. But we don't care. I don't care nothing about you being black. If you don't comply, we got something for you. Look, it could have been my mama. If she ain't complying, it's going down. And I ain't taking no prisoners. So anyhow, we went out and recalled this young man named Glen Yarborough. Big rangy guy, 6'5", tough guy. He always ready to fight women. Always, that's all he wanted to do, was fight women. And so we said, we're gonna fix you. We went out, got enough signatures to recall, and probably did it in less than 30 days. And they was all, angry because Whirlpool was backing him and financing him. And he had the largest family in Benton Harbor. So they said it was virtually impossible for us to, recall him and beat him at the election. So we used a secret weapon. We went out and got the absentee ballot on him. We used that as a weapon because you got to know your opponent. You got to know what you need to do. So we used the absentee ballot and we defeated him on that measure. See, the ruling class got all kind of rules that we don't quite understand. They decided that they was going to start kicking in people's doors. See, I told you earlier that the electoral system is a war. And I also told you that war is hell. They was kicking in these people's doors. And when I say kick them in 3, 4 o'clock in the morning for a recall petition, because they had to put their man back in that seat. We had defeated him. So they got to figure out a way how we going to put him back in that seat. They didn't find any votes. We won by 54 votes. They couldn't find any votes where we did anything wrong. The chief of police and his mama, his father, and her sister was 3 tainted votes. The chief should have took him to jail. And they decided that they're going to put this man back in his seat, the ruling class now. Because these 3 votes, it was their votes, but there were 3 tainted votes. because they can do whatever they want to do. They do this, but we allow them. But that's okay. We'll get them at the election time. It's simple. And we got them. You know, he knew that was coming. They knew that it was coming because it's organized. When you organize yourself and be prepared to move to the next level. See, I'm not just a guy who walk around here and deal. I do everything. You know, I'm a guy who deals with the juvenile lifers. I court watch every day. Every day. See, my day never ends. But it's important to be in control of your community. You have to know your community and what you're able to do, because they're coming. Yeah. And here's what's important. They couldn't send me to prison for this. They said that I was in possession of an absentee ballot. Now, who would believe that a professional, I'm a professional, recall. People, when they want to know something about recalling, they call me. All over the state. They call Reverend Pinckney. And I tell them how to do it. Get the language right for them, everything. They couldn't send me to prison for that. But I wrote an article in this very, very small newspaper. I may have been passing it out to people here. This newspaper. It simply said, if you do not hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God and do all these things right, that these things will come upon you, which was Deuteronomy 28, starting with the 15th verse. And the judge said it was a threat on his life. He must have been doing something awful terrible. I would bet he was scared to death. He said, no, that Pinckney knows something. I don't know what he knows, but whatever he knows, I don't want to know what he knows. So they sent me to prison for 3 to 10 years. But fortunate for me, the ACLU came in. We had been friends for years. They came in. And first I got out on an appeal bond, which in the state of Michigan is almost virtually impossible. Then eventually it was overturned. But it was all done because of the electoral process. You see, their job was to stop me. See, I like that though. Anytime, because I'm always on the offensive. I'm always attacking. You see, that's what I do. Normally they do it. You see, the ruling class is always attacking us. So now I attack them. And I always do things that they never heard of before because I'm over there, I'm in their face. Because they don't intimidate me. You know, and one of the things that we must learn and must believe, I wrote something in this little pamphlet. The struggle that has taken place in recent years in Benton Harbor is a case in point, one that holds a nimble lesson for the American people. The fight in Benton Harbor is a war. It's no conflict. This is the real deal. It's an electoral war, and we got to stand up and fight back with these people. It's not nothing that we can't do. It's something that we can do. And just recently, 2014, we went out and recalled the mayor. Now they really mad. They are so mad because they knew that they had to do something. They sent the SWAT team to my house. They surrounded my house with the SWAT team. And it was fortunate for me, fortunate for me, I saw that 5 minutes, so I got to give it a rush. It was my wife's birthday. And I was taking her out to dinner. And while we was on our way to Kalamazoo, Michigan, the SWAT team had surrounded my home. They came, see, now you got to understand how important it is to be in power. You see what I'm saying? If I didn't have any power, they probably would send a squad car with one guy in it. Or call me on the phone and say, well, Rev, you know, we got a warrant for your arrest, and we need you to come in. I said, okay, no problem. But no, they sent a whole squad team. So blocked out the street. They called martial law on my block. People couldn't get in, people couldn't get out. True. Yeah. And then here's happening. I'm gonna move it along real fast for you. So if I miss something, somebody correct me out there. Anyway, when you have the power and know what you're doing out there, you can win.
Yes, right.
See, a lot of times we don't take the time out and utilize our power. You see, I went to trial. They found me guilty of forgery on a recall petition. And there was no such charge. I spent 30 months in prison. I had to do all that. And then I had to eat that food. I had to eat that food. That is no laughing matter. That food is something. But here's the good news. I got out. Everything was going real well. And I regained my power back with the recall. I went to the courthouse to make sure I had all the rules about the recall petition. I said, I need a recall package. And when I told them I needed a recall package, before I can get out the courthouse, they wanted to know who I was going to recall. They was lining up to find a Pinckney getting ready to recall somebody. But that's when you out there, the process. It's war. They're gonna bring their A game. That's why you have to know what you're doing also. Like I told them all the time, you got something for me, bring it. But here's the good news. The Supreme Court ruled, like I had said, there's no such charge. There's no such charge as forgery on a recall petition. It could be a misstatement, but it could not be forgery on a recall petition. And they overturned the conviction. Yeah. They overturned the conviction. 6-0. It would have been 7, but one of the guys was sick. And I wear it on my back because it's important that we can understand the process. War is hell. And we have to make sure we're doing all the things that we need to do to be successful. We can win if we fight. I believe that we should fight back. I think we should fight everything. And I think that we should take our time and lay it out. Because a recall, you're doing two things. What you're doing, you're strengthening your base. People come and want to know about these things. And that's why I do it. I do it to show people they better be on their P's and Q's. Because Pinckney is coming. 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 Get your house in order. Because I will recall you. I'll recall everybody. I don't care who you are. And if you mess up, you're going to face me. You don't want to face Pinckney. Do my people right. Take care of the people. War is hell. War is hell. War is hell. Round the process, the electoral process. We can do this. Can we do it? Can we do it? Can we do it? Can we do it?
Wow, coming behind Reverend Pickney, why y'all do this to me? But before I come give my presentation, we want to distribute, coffee will be distributing some literature. But as she's doing so, can you hold up on my time until get the literature distributed? But I just want to say, Reverend Pickney and all of us, we should support some reparations for Reverend Pickney for them incarcerating him. He's due some reparations, personal reparations. That's on the real side.
Appreciate that.
As well as, Brother Pickney, I wish you were with us. We worked to do a recall of the racist mayor here in St. Louis some years back, and we needed you there. We got a lot of petitions. Yeah. Thousands of numbers, but the way they had it set up, we had to go into a lot of the white racist alderman wards. They had them by wards to get X amount, and we couldn't get from some of the racist white folks, and that's where we fell short.
Right. What I did, I always bring them in. I have them to, give them a reason to come.
Right.
And that's important.
Okay, then, as they're passing out the literature, let me first of all just express solidarity. Today's been a great day. I'm sorry I missed a number of folks' presentations. Had some sad news today. One of my members' son was killed last night in a police chase. So we got to deal with that as an issue. And I wanted to start the day off because another kind of sad news, but by the grace of God, she survived it. Coffee Wright, she didn't make mention of it, but her daughter, a backhoe fell on her daughter's car and crushed the car, and her daughter is in the hospital. And so, we've been dealing with a number of things. But in my opening remarks, I also want to just make mention to Brother Ralph Partner, as he was saying in terms of our people. And I just wanted to add what you said earlier this morning, that if you don't be involved in the movement, you got to have a love for black folks. You got to love black folks. And then also to our educators, I'm an educator myself, and I was taken out of the public school system because I wrote a public letter cracking on a bootlicking Negro principle that I passed to the students and the teachers, and the next day I was gone. But that's part of the struggle. And also I want to reemphasize that politics is war. And part of the politics in terms of war is a propaganda war, in that we got to capture our people's minds. And so to that end, in capturing our people's minds, I just want to say that as we pass out some literature to you, that we've been on the battlefront for a number of years around a concept that we think can help in that process of war. And that process is proportionate political representation. And by the way, St. Louis County just had a victory, and we have to see the fruits of our victory, because a racist prosecutor, Bob McCullough, was defeated handily by a brother out of Ferguson named Wesley Bell. I think we ought to. Yeah. And I say that during the height of the Michael Brown rebellion uprising, we were in the county seat of St. Louis, shutting down a couple of the streets. But some of the members wanted to send up a note to the county prosecutor to have a conversation with him as relates toward the indictment of the racist police officer. 5 names were sent up: 2 Christian ministers, a Muslim minister, Akbar Muhammad, a member from the Organization for Black Struggle, as well as my name. Bob McCullough sent a note back down, said he would meet with everyone but Zaki Baruti. I just want to cite another example. War is held on the electoral process, because we also have to fight for those things that we feel that will enhance our community. In a fight in the 90s for community control of the police, we were up in Jeff City testifying, and I was testifying on behalf of the bill. And the head of the police association testified after I did. I testified for the bill, and he was testifying against the bill. And you know what his first remarks was? I'm against the bill because Zaki Baruti is for the bill.
Oh.
I mean, that's on the real side,
Yeah.
okay?
I like that.
Yeah, I would like that too,
Yeah, I
okay?
like that, yeah.
So within that context of fighting these folks, we can win. Recognizing it is reform, not total revolution, but if we had a person such as the one that has won, and in St. Louis we've made history with two people who have been elected first time in the history of St. Louis, as I mentioned, Wesley Bell for county prosecutor, and there's another sister who's talking about ending mass incarceration, who was elected as the St. Louis City prosecutor, Kim Gardner, and that was history also. But early on, our organization in the early 90s, as an extension of a murder of another young man named Garland Carter, had asked a young attorney to challenge for that position. He did an excellent campaign, but as many of you mentioned, we got a class of misleaders who, instead of going with the people's candidate, went with the candidates that represent the status quo. So we're at war. And we got to understand that war, we got those who are forward-thinking, progressives, revolutionaries, but we got the traitors in our community.
That's right.
And we have to be clear on that. But we also got to be clear on our objectives. And what we say as an organization is that if we're a certain percentage of this population of this country and we give pay taxes, then we ought to have that percentage of power. It just makes sense to me.
Absolutely.
Especially if you don't live in this country. So we say, as we had said in some of the handouts early on in the 90s, you should have a handout that says, fellow brothers and sisters, we boldly declared the 1990s as a decade to achieve for political proportionate representation. As we said in another edition of our newspaper back in the 90s, question, is there an alternative political reality in America? And we say yes, statewide Black People's Political Conventions, and you can see the date on it. And I just wanted to give you that sense of history of our struggle as an organization seeking and fighting in the midst of war on the political side. Also, I want to address Coffey's recent campaign.
All right, all right.
And I want to, from here, salute Coffey.
Yes.
Because Coffey had, after joining our organization, had nowhere on her radar that she won't be a candidate for United States Senator. But I said to her, it would be a damn shame in 2018 if we had just allowed white people to run for that office and none of us speak truth to power.
That's it.
In that race, there were 20 other candidates, 11 from the Republican Party, 7 the Democrats, along with her being 8 Green Party candidates and Libertarians. It would have been shameful. Harriet Tubman been turned over in her grave.
Say it.
Shirley Chisholm been turned over in her grave.
Say it.
And a host of others, Mega Evers, who fought for us to have that right to vote. And as Brother Glen had made mention, it's about them trying to suppress our vote.
That's right.
And if they're trying to suppress our vote, then there must be some value in our vote.
What you saying?
We're at war. And when you're at war, you use whatever method to bring you victory. Whatever method. And so we see this as one level of struggle. This year, in our most recent copy of our newspaper, we have the front page of Coffey, and we were projecting on a spiritual note 144,000 plus voting for her. That didn't happen, but we had 41,000 people who supported the grassroots advocacy on the issues that impact us. I think that's tremendous based on little or no dollars.
That's right.
Little or no dollars.
Oh, yeah.
And to that end, though, we did end up in debt, so we don't ask anybody who want to make a donation. If you got a copy of our paper, we'd like to get a dollar donation because we are in debt for about $700, so we're going to erase that. But again, from that lesson, look at the lesson. 40,000 conscious people voted for coffee. And I say that because every black elected official in the city of St. Louis, Kansas City, went with this opponent who supported spending $1.4 billion to upgrade nuclear weapons. $1.4 trillion. And we were proposing through the campaign that our reparations on one hand could have been $7,144 million being invested to redo Dr. King with black workers and black contractors and a strip of black businesses along Dr. King, and do likewise in the Avenue in Kansas City. That was one of our positions. And we boldly spoke about ending mass incarceration. And wasn't in front of just black audiences. It was wherever we went to speak. But we didn't have us in the race. It would have been nobody speaking truth to power.
That's right. Absolutely.
So the challenge for us, I'm challenging everyone in here. If we don't be serious, and this is my vision, our vision. This was a skirmish. You know, when you're in war, you have skirmishes.
That's right. That's right.
And then you have a big battle.
That's right. Say it.
Final offensive. Hey, 2020 could be a real heavy year.
That's right.
Let me tell you why it could be a heavy year. Number one, there'll be about 30-some plus United States Senate seats up for election. About 10 to 15 governorships. Wouldn't it be in my mind as a fight back? We have black men and women like yourself in the state of Georgia, in the state of Florida, in Massachusetts, wherever they have the candidacy, that we all running for those positions and we all saying the same thing. We support the 19 points for self-determination. What would that do?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
We got to think beyond the box. I said 40,000 votes here. And our campaign was only 5 months.
Yeah.
When I first ran for governor of the state of Missouri in '84, I had a 4-month campaign, and I ended up with only 10,000 votes. But, and it's in one of the handouts, I was able to leverage, and it's on the, because we made the Democratic candidate, because it was a tight race at that time, between the Democratic candidate named Ken Rothman versus the racist named John Ashcroft. And our 10,000 votes, I guess, was important because he sought my endorsement. I said, the only way that you will get my endorsement, you got to publicly say that you endorse the black agenda that came out of our political convention in '84. And he did, shockingly. But he lost also. But I only say that to say, what if we begin, because a lot of the states, the way they got it is gerrymandered. You know, the United States Senate in Wyoming has less people, and you got 2 United States senators, than all of the black people in the city of Chicago and New York. But they're getting represented, okay? But what if in these states, we build up a voter turnout for our candidates at those levels, and the races be real close? We can leverage our vote for wherever fox, like Malcolm say, or wolf that need our vote. Am I making sense?
Yeah, you make good sense. Yeah.
So 2020 if we begin to stock up on our ammunition, and what I'm talking about ammunition, for those of you who were in St. Louis, people thought we had a lot of money.
Yeah.
I had to just laugh there because we had put a lot of signs out into the community and we had radio ads. But what if we had double the amount of $5,000 to $10,000? What we could have done.
20.
Or 20,000. Hey, so if we don't be serious going into the future, then we got to begin to have some objectives. And I pray to Almighty Creator, before he takes me out of here, that I can see in 1 year that we all stand up. And I ask of nobody to do no more than myself. I paved the way. I ran for governor in '84. I said, damn, that wasn't good enough for that 10,000, so I ran a second time. And in '84, most all of the black elected officials went with the other candidates. I ran a second time in '88, and I was blessed, though, after a year of campaigning, my total went from 10,000 to 87,000.
Wow. That's great.
That can happen for anybody in this room who have the audacity, because you got to have the audacity, and you got to have the strength, because you're going to be challenged, and Coffee can tell you. You think your family will join you. Sometimes they don't. You think some progressive folks will join you. And they find, I mean, we had a situation where we supported a sister who ran after we had asked her to run for a U.S. Senator, but we couldn't get her to endorse Coffee. Damn shame. I'm sorry, I just feel like this today.
Yeah. You're right on point.
But that's the challenge if we have war.
Yeah.
And at war too, I'd be remiss, because Malcolm said it correctly, it's, you know, either or, the ballot or the bullet, or bullet. So we got to salute those soldiers who take it to the bullet. I got to add that in. I salute that brother. I'm from this studio. I mean, right here, I salute Brother Cookie Thornton, who was mistreated in the city of Kirkwood. But he got sick and tired of it. And he took it to another level. He took it to another level. The brother in Dallas took it to another level. We're at war. Any means necessary.
That's right.
But we can't play with it. So we need some black men and women who are not afraid. So if you're in the state, and to that end, our organization next year, and I kindly invite you to be here, it's the month after the electoral school, but we're having our 5th annual National Black Political Leadership Conference, because we're going to be saying who's going to be our candidates for United States Senator and governors. Actually, who will be our black candidate for a United States president? Omali, you want to be that? Hey, we got to challenge them.
That's right.
Hey, so I'm within the bounds of my time. I think I've just gotten off how I feel. But let's don't play at this, my people. It's good to talk about politics, but we got to practice what we preach.
That's right.
If we don't practice what we preach, please, 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 please. If we don't practice what we preach. If we're talking about the bullet, I'd be glad. I'm sorry. I'd be glad to read some of them having some casualties. I ain't got no fear in saying that. If you kill us, damn it, some of you got to die. Damn that they keep killing us. Damn that. But at the same time, if we don't have that kind of nerve to do that, then damn it, run for governor. Run for United States Senator.
That's right.
Run for your local office.
Yeah.
Am I making sense, my people?
A lot of sense. Go ahead.
On that note, though, For those who are in St. Louis too, I'd be remiss to announce that we will be having our annual conference in the spirit of Marcus Garvey, our actual 29th, who said, "Up, you mighty people, accomplish what you will." And I know this is a core of folks that can change the course of history. You got to look at yourself. Can change the course of history for ourselves and for our future generations. Because those who are in power are crazy than a fruitcake. Y'all know they crazy. And the only way we can change that is that we got to get some sane people in office, and you are the same people. God bless you.
All right.
Uhuru. Black is back. Black is back. God damn it, Black is back. Uhuru. So I really want to salute the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations for what has been a very dynamic first day of the annual conference. I want to salute, being able to stand here in the Uhuru House in St. Louis. Need to salute my leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Deputy Chair Onazane Yeshitela. And, that this is the movement that practices what it preaches. We put it on the ground. We say this is what we're going to do, and we do it. And so, I think that it was because of that longstanding history that this movement has, that it was totally right when the African People's Socialist Party, which I'm a member of, last year said that we were going to have one of our members run for office. And that member happened to be me. And it was, it was, beyond just an amazing personal experience, but it was a, practical manifestation of, what was last year's theme of Black is Back, which was the ballot and the bullet, which was a practical manifestation of that. But it was also after we came out of the gate with, the Black is Back came out of the gate with the National Black Political Agenda for Self-Determination, that was in direct response to this whole, who do we vote for? The lesser of two evils. It's Trump, it's Hillary, it's Democrats, it's the Republicans, and they're all heinous and they're all criminals. And who represents us, Black people in this country, who represents us? And the Black is Back Coalition put forth the National Black Political Agenda for Self-Determination. And so we came out of the gate swinging, and then the following year in 2017, we entered the electoral arena in St. Petersburg, Florida. And, St. Petersburg, Florida has a very rich history. For a while, it's headquartered, the African People's Socialist Party. And it's, a city that is lily white. Only 23% of Black people make up the city's population. And, but despite that, Black people in the city of St. Pete have waged courageous resistance. This has history of resistance with Chairman Omali Yeshitela usually at the spearhead of all of that. Coming from 1966 when he tore down this racist mural in City Hall that still remains blank today. From just the amazing organizing that's happened in St. Pete, with the rebellions in 1996 after the police murdered 18-year-old African Tyron Lewis, and the Black community fought back 300 police officers. They had all their armored tanked vehicles, helicopters. The people shot the helicopters down and protected the Uhuru movement after they tried to set the building on fire and kill Chairman Omali Yeshitela. It was the people that came out and fought back in 1996. So St. Pete has this history of resistance, and it was that history that we entered into the election. And we ran on the platform, the National Black Political Agenda for Self-Determination, and the slogan was unity through reparations. And the party strategically ran two campaigns, one for mayor and one for the district that I was in, which was District 6 City Council. And we ran a white person for mayor. We ran a white person within the African People's Solidarity Committee, Jesse Neville, who's actually in the building today. And we ran But this campaign, the mayoral campaign in Jesse, was under the strategic leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, and specifically the campaign for District 6 City Council, because our campaigns organize in the most oppressed sectors of the African community. And it was this platform, Unity Through Reparations, that put reparations as the center for moving forward. There was no ability to solve any problem. Whatever complaint you had about the city, the mayor had just got done dumping 1 billion gallons of sewage in the water. People are, outraged about the hiking prices and rent. People are outraged by the police containment. People are outraged by gentrification. Well, the only solution to that is through reparations to end the long-standing oppression of the Black community, which that's the basis of everything. The basis of all the oppression in the city of St. Pete and everywhere it is. We're sitting in St. Louis, Missouri, which is not different than St. Petersburg, Florida, in regards to what's happening to Black people, what's happening when, white power, imperialism, colonialism have the boot on our necks everywhere. It's the same kind of conditions, and reparations is a solution to that. And we said that unity through reparations means that, not only does, we correct the long-standing injustices that have been committed against the Black community, but it also offers this majority white city an opportunity to unite with the fighting Black community who has been fighting for decades and will continue to fight until it's won. And it allowed white people to unite with the call for reparations. And it was an electoral campaign that swept the city of St. Pete, but not just this little city. It really reverberated throughout this country. And now you even see people, running for these radical candidates running for office, and that's not a coincidence after you have this dynamic campaign that came out of St. Petersburg, Florida. And, we've been talking about waging war through the electoral arena, and I just think that's so important and so fitting, because the electoral process is used as a form of war against the African community. It is used as a war against the African community. And a glaring example is when we go into the African community and knock on doors to try to get people to sign a petition to qualify Jesse Neville to get on the ballot, all these African men and women have been convicted with all these felonies, so they can't even participate. And those felonies are as a result of police occupation of the African community. African people majority of our community can't participate in the electoral arena. And not only that, but then you have this whole thing, you talked about gerrymandering. Gerrymandering was happening in the city of St. Pete. It's been like this long plan to gerrymander the African community, and District 6 specifically was this, it was one of the only Black districts in the city of St. Pete. Now there's only 1 out of 8. And District 6 contained the most impoverished sector of, the city and the richest sector of the city. And the government strategically did that. They placed these areas of the white community, they kicked out other aspects of the Black community out of District 6, and they put white people and the white communities in that district, and then white people eventually made up majority of that district. And so this is all the things we were up against. And not only that, we were up against the whole long-standing tradition of voting Democrat and Republican. We were up against the whole, the felony convictions against our people. We were up against these big money millionaires. The most expensive mayoral election in the city's history was spent trying to defeat the reparations candidates, the Uhuru candidates. All that money went into trying to defeat us. And then we had Obama come into the city, not because, because he even was opposed to the Republican candidate, this Republican candidate. He wasn't afraid that he was going to take it from the Democrat. He was afraid of us. He was afraid of the reparations candidates. The only time Obama comes into a local city election is when there's a threat to the status quo, and that was us. And so Obama had to intervene in this local election. And so that just speaks to how much power we have, and how if we fight back, what we can achieve, and that the status quo was shaken by everything it is that we were doing. And it was very evident. They wouldn't give us any platform, any access. And that's the thing. If you're $1 million campaign and you own and control the state, you have control the media apparatus, what you doing? If you're not afraid of the little small candidates, what are you doing? Threatening and taking media time away from the people's candidates. Are you afraid that we were going to win? Yeah, they were afraid we were going to win. And so it was just a very dynamic campaign, and it was very clear. It was led by the African working class. It was the most dynamic well-organized campaign. It was a volunteer-based campaign. We went out in the streets and we won people based on the platform alone. And they wanted to join and do the groundwork because the other candidates, they paid people. They had a paid staff for the entire summer to come, work on their electoral campaigns and still couldn't garner enough support. Everything we did was volunteer-based. The platform in itself was winning because the people are tired. The people are tired and want imperialism, white power off its back. So they joined this campaign because it was a reflection of hope. It had an actual vision tied to it, had an actual future for the Black community. And so they joined this campaign. We had, we were, during this whole process, the first electoral campaign school by the Black is Back Coalition was held in April of 2017. We met New York State Assemblyman Charles Barron, who talked about door to door wins the war, and that's exactly what we did. We were out in the streets almost 24/7. Early morning at the breakfast shops, wherever, and at the barber shops, at the beauty salons, every place, touring throughout the African community specifically and garnering all the support. And, now we knocked on 20,000 doors and called 12,000 people. And that's just in terms of this small, low budget campaign in the city of St. Pete. That is extremely tremendous because the other opponents didn't do a dime of what we did, not even close. And on top of that, we had all this enthusiasm on our side. And, we went into every debate where usually in every debate, you have the Democrats and Republicans and they talk about, they want more playgrounds and they talk about noise ordinances and they talk about, sweeping palm fronds off of the street. And this election, they had to deal with the murder of Black children. And in this election, they had to deal with reparations and the historical injustice committed against the Black community. And this election, they had to talk about the big elephant in the room, which is the oppression of the Black community. And we did that. We raised these important questions in their arena. We did that. So ultimately, the big money millionaire candidates won, and that was okay because we went in there not defining our success by the victory in the bourgeois elections because we came to win, but we left the elections realizing we had won much, much more than what we could have ever thought. I mean, one, we permeated the city with this platform, Unity Through Reparations. And people still come up to us in the city of St. Pete, oh, I remember you, your campaigns were so dynamic and, you just said what nobody had the guts to say. People coming up to us saying, I never even got to think about reparations. And they finally got to say, yeah, reparations make sense. It's a just demand. And that's what we did in the city of St. Pete. And we're in the process of creating the situation that's hostile to big money investors, where the city government can't operate without the presence of the people. We're always in their faces all the time. And we left that election and we built an organization called Communities United for Reparations and Economic Development, or CURED. And we built this organization based on the fact that we have a goal to achieve. We said Unity Through Reparations is a platform that's going to solve all the problems throughout the city of St. Pete, and God damn it, we meant it. Which meant we had to build an organization that was capable of continuing this process of raising this platform and winning it amongst the masses of the people. We're not stopping, we're not backing down, and we have so many other abilities to contend with them in their own arena. And so CURED is going to be, because we're very serious about seizing power through the electoral arena. Because, this party, this movement has, been fighting on all these different fronts, and we're going to seize this one. We're going to be victorious in this one. We've fought on all these different fronts, built all these amazing institutions, and we're going right into their faces, and we're taking it from them. We're taking this process from them, and until they got to call the National Guards in and say, you can't use the electoral process anymore because it's working for you, because you're taking back power for yourselves. And we're going to continue to do that until it's it is a problem, but until they send the what did they send in Benton Harbor? What did they send? The SWAT team. So they send the SWAT team. But, so that's this organization, CURED, was built under, again, just a brilliant strategy by Chairman Omali Yeshitela to continue to, all these people that have just put so much hope into the platform of Unity Through Reparations, who are fighting for it today to get it realized, have joined in this organization. And we are about to launch this ballot initiative, which is called Take Back the Dome. And the dome is in reference to this big baseball stadium called the Tropicana Field Baseball Stadium. And this stadium is, covers 86 acres of land, including huge parking lots. And it was built over the gas plant district, which was a historic African community. And they crushed that community, just like they're doing, or just like they did with the spy agency right here in Northside St. Louis. The same thing they're doing right here in Northside St. Louis with that spy agency, and they crushed that entire community. They did that in the 90s with the baseball stadium. They crushed the African community. They tore down 800 homes, kicked out all those families, don't even know where those families are anymore. They paved over a graveyard so white people enjoying a baseball game park on, bodies of buried Africans right there. And, and now there's no semblance of economic development in the city of St. Pete other than the institutions that the Uhuru movement has built. But literally it's, they call it a food desert here. It's a food desert in St. Pete. There's no jobs. It's just poverty and despair. And we, just understanding that, throughout the elections, we said that dome could be turned over as a form of reparations to the Black community. 86 acres of land, turn that back over to the Black community so we can build economic development and affordable housing for our people, to end, the gentrification, the vicious gentrification that's taking over our communities. And put power in the hands of our people to alleviate, the price and housing throughout the whole market, create this whole vision of an African village with commerce and African people coming and buying and selling amongst each other and having, just this beautiful, vibrant community once again that will be, a tourist attraction throughout the city, throughout the world. You think about, this self-reliant African community bursting with African culture. I want to be there. And, that's what the 86 acres of land that sits on, that rests under that dome now, that's that vision. And so we're going to take it back. We're going to take 86 acres of that land back for the Black community through the Take Back the Dome initiative, which means we have to go out and get 30,000 signatures by August of next year to be in the primary elections. And it's possible. We can do it. It's going to be possible to take 30,000 signatures. We've seen it, throughout, the presentations here, what we can do. And we've seen it, we just had a semblance of that in 2017 when we ran for office. So, we're going to be able to seize that 86 acres of land, turn it back over to the Black community, and we will decide what happens to it, which means our community is here to stay. We have this campaign called Make the South Side Black Again, because South Side is the Black community in St. Pete, and the dome sits right in the heart of the South Side, so we're really making it Black. And before my time is up, I also wanted to say that, this is an international organization, and I'm just in terms of the African People's Socialist Party and its mass organization, the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. And we're not just doing this type of work in St. Pete, we're doing it right here in St. Louis. And that's with the Keep 28 campaign, which if you're from St. Louis, you know about this ward reduction that's essentially taking away, power, political power from the African community right here in St. Louis. And, they're trying to strip the wards and make it impossible for candidates who even represent our interests to run for office because of now all the ground they have to cover in order to win. And so this Keep 28 campaign is also a petition drive to halt, to stop the whole, to keep 28. Keep 28 wards in the city of St. Louis, and Keep 28 is a fight for Black power, and that's that slogan. So we're entering on all fronts all throughout this country, and I just through this process hope that anybody who is aspiring to run for office will, one, understand all the work that goes into it, that it is a struggle, it is a fight. You are entering into the white man's den, into the belly of the beast, and that there is a way to win, and it has to be through serious, serious struggle. You can't be afraid to say what needs to be said and fight for the interests of your people, and now you have the National Black Political Agenda for Self-Determination to back you up, and the Black is Back Coalition. So I just want to end that here. Really appreciate everyone again. Black is back. Black is back. God damn, Black is back. Whoa.
Again, I just want to thank so much the panelists who are up here and for their powerful presentations about what we can actually do, because they are actually doing it when it comes to this electoral process. And now we're going to have question and answers. You said 20 minutes, Sister Kenge? Yes, so people have any questions, please, questions or comments, please come right up to that microphone. And yeah, I would say, you know, to be about this panel, but questions in general, yeah. Yeah. Anyone? Just line up at the microphone. And we will ask that you please try to keep your questions and our comments concise. We don't want to go longer than 2 minutes with the question, so we can start.
This question is for everybody. Was there ever a time, you know, when you were speaking in any of these forums where somebody asked a question, like one of the other competitors or whatever, where they asked a question that you didn't know how to answer or said a statement that you didn't know how to respond to? No?
We always answered every question. We know all the answers.
That was all I had.
Let me say that to that question. The fact is that many Africans think that's the problem, think that we don't know enough, that we can't deal with these forces and therefore we don't run. That's one of the reasons we do these schools, to help people understand that there's nothing magic about this. You don't have to be that smart. If you had to be that smart, Trump, Bush, and a whole bunch of them never would have been, you know, elected for anything. So that's what we want. It's a really important question, because again, it's based on this assumption that's out in our community that I might do it, but I'm not smart enough, or I don't know enough, or et cetera, et cetera. You know enough. And just everybody who has run have had some form of training. Usually they are more educated than we are, usually. Et cetera. They have access to more information, but that's why we have to come together and create our own institutions like the Black is Black Coalition, where we train people, give people an understanding how you do this thing, you can do this thing, and we take the mystery out of this stuff, the mystery out of this thing of the electoral process.
Let me say this too. Usually, like in my community, it's on the job training. Most people have never been an elected official before, so they really don't know. That's why they need the community to help them. You see, we have to advise them and make sure before the other side get a hold of them. Because usually we put them in office, we're good at that. We can control an election. But once you get in there, then you always, most of the time, they switch sides on us. That's how they do, because money talks. That's in a community, you know. So if the question ever came up, I probably would never run for office myself, because that's not my party. My job is to recall you. That's what I do. Yeah, you know, and I think that's one of the things that we need to get. Let's start talking more about politics so people can understand their position.
You know, I'd like to add, one of the things, I'm glad you did ask that question, as Coffee's campaign manager, and she was dealing with the United States Senate, and there was a lot of intricate questions that could have come her way. And I had shared with her that if something that she didn't know, she'll just say, I'll do the research. Yeah. But that didn't come up. But one thing I think Reverend Pickman had said in terms of when we had Coffee run for this office, a lot of our people are in, I'm not talking about the politicians, because many of the politicians are bought. I'm just talking about the ordinary people. Sometimes we'll get a remark, something to the fact that what makes you qualified? Yeah. You know, I mean, you know, why are you doing that? Because she got all this money. You know, we had those kinds of negative kinds of feedback. Yeah. And so we have to, number one, I believe we have to constantly have, and I'm challenging at that highest level. One of the things that also we get, Well, you didn't work your way up through the political process. You weren't an alderman or you weren't a state rep. So why are you going for such a high position? Well, you got people running there, but we don't have nobody running for the high position. And in fact, I only ran for governor in '84 out of a concept. And that concept at that time, we had put together in 1984 under another organization I was head of called the Caucus for Community Progress. And we had about 400 people, 500 people in attendance, and we had 3 objectives. In 1984, there were no black governors. Today, is still no black governors. In 1984, there were no black United States senators, and there's only 3 today. So what originally we had as an objective was to have an all-black slate in the state of Missouri. We had 5 statewide positions open: governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, state treasurer, and state auditor. And we had the objective of our conference was to educate whoever was in attendance to state politics, draw up a platform of concerns impacting us similar to the 19 points. And third was to encourage the black people to run. We asked all of the so-called prominent state elected black officials, every one. First of all, when we say all black slate, they looked at us like we was crazy. So we pulled back and said, let's just get one candidate, one who would run for a governor. We couldn't get nobody. So that's how I ended up running. And after I ran, then others have began to run statewide on the principle. But in the state of Missouri, of course, here in the state of Missouri, never in history has there been anybody black elected. But for facts, though, in the United States Senate, there's been over 2,000, you can look it up, I may not be totally right on the figures, but there's been over 2,000 people who have served as U.S. senators, only 10, 2,300. And only 10 look like us. And in terms of elected governors, I think it's only been 2 in the history of this country. And one was appointed.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to ask even the panelists to be mindful of the time. So we just want to make sure we have other people who ask other questions. We want to get as many people as possible. And we only have 15 more minutes.
Okay.
Okay. So, Sister Betty? Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
The chairman, as well as the panelists, because he started off his presentation by talking about the revolutionary struggle of the 60s and how the Panther movement was crushed. And one of the things he said that sticks with me is that they believed in institutional political power. And then I want to reference Glen. I don't know if he's still here.
To the microphone, please.
Brother Glen, when he talked about the creeping fascism, because that's what it is. And I want to remind you that, first of all, everything Hitler did was legal. They passed laws and it was legal. And the second thing I want to remind you is that using the burning of the Reichstag, which is what Russiagate is, it's the burning of the Reichstag. They rounded up all of the communists, and you are the communists in their lexicon. When you are organizing, because that's what you're doing with this election process, because it's a fraud. You don't have a democracy, all right? How are you matching the reality that you know is coming with where the people are today via building the institutions that Brother Chairman Yeshitela is talking about? This is one institution, but it's not enough. So I just want to put that out there for you. Glen has made it clear. This is the burning of the Reichstag. They're getting ready to round people up. And how do you think you can nail that without respecting your political prisoners and institutionalized educational process? Okay, because the people don't know their role in history, they can't perform their role in history. And I think what you're saying is you're using the electoral process to educate. So I just want you to just start looking at how your institutions are functioning or not functioning. And I want you to know what Glen said about Russiagate. The burning of the Reichstag, they rounded everybody up.
Okay.
Because they had that excuse.
Yeah.
Chairman, you can clarify where
No, okay, that comes. I think that's really important stuff, and you're right. I mean, there ain't that kind of time to be messing around, you know, and we're building now, in October, we're going to have the 7th Congress of the African People's Socialist Party right here in St. Louis. And I've done a political report to the Congress because it's my responsibility as the chair of the organization to do a political report that, you know, lays out, summing up where we are, where the conditions are, where we have to go, et cetera. And it's my responsibility to have done this like 3 months prior to the Congress. So that's out there so that the members of the party have an opportunity to read it, and be able to struggle around it. And I've been doing every Sunday now, every Sunday morning. We've been also doing this, streaming it, having this discussion, streaming it. And interestingly, this Sunday, tomorrow, is that tomorrow? Yeah. Tomorrow morning, and that's at 7 o'clock. We begin here at 9 or something like that. So for 7 to 9, we record it here. Not record it, but we stream it from here. And on this Sunday, that chapter of the political report deals exactly with what you're talking about in terms of how we're organizing every region, not only in this country, but in Africa and Europe and other places, and how we need to institutionalize our presence among the most oppressed sectors of the population so that we're able to wage struggle on every level. And that then crucial to that is pulling the African working class and these poor people into organized life and being a physical presence in the community where we provide the political education and other things necessary to win. So anybody here who, if you want to, we'll be here tomorrow morning at 7. I'm going to be reading that chapter. It wasn't something that would have gotten mentioned otherwise, but we're dealing with this question. So they're going to think that you were, what do you call it, a ringer. But that's the right question that you asked. We'll be talking about that tomorrow morning from the political report. So I hope you're here.
Yeah. Let me say this to everybody. One of the things that I do, I used to recall petition actually to organize people, actually to get them to come to my meetings, because they become mine. Once I get them, once they sign their petition, then I register them to vote. Then they can come and listen to what I have to say at my meetings. And then I get a chance to educate. I give them what they never had before. And that's, the electoral process. I know eventually we're gonna, we're not really gonna win that because loan money gonna win that.
Well, slavery was legal too.
Right, yeah, absolutely. And I know eventually that, you put someone in office, eventually they switch horses right in the middle of the race because of a few dollars, So my level of concentration is really not on them, but I want to put the fear in their mind that Pinckney might recall you. So that's what I do. And then also during the process, I get other people to also join the organization too.
I just want to get an idea of how many more people are in line. So we have 4 more people? Oh, 2, 3 more? Okay, I would like to make this suggestion because time is running out a little bit. I would like for the 3 people to ask their questions all, at once, and then then you all can answer as you please. I want to make sure we at least get their questions in, and then you can answer them. So we're going to go you, and then you, Ralph, and then you, brother. Okay.
Uhuru, all of you spoke about being isolated once you try to because when the message comes out and it's Black Power, automatically isolation is what they try to do. And I know for sure in Akile's campaign, they tried to make it to where she couldn't speak at anything. The Reverend, you said that basically they threw you in jail and tried to get you away from the people. As like he spoke about in the school system, they fired him on the spot. So how do you deal with the isolation to keep putting yourself back up there? And I know when you're a mass force, you get demoralized when people keep isolating you. So how do you stop from getting demoralized?
Okay. Now, Brother Ralph, we're going to hold those thoughts. Brother Ralph, your question.
Yes.
And then Sister Coffee, you'll be the last one. We just want to get these, and then you guys can answer them. Okay.
Fantastic panel. But I am sorely disappointed when Reverend Pinckney said he's not going to be a candidate, because I know that if he becomes a candidate in Benton Harbor, we won't have to look for a recall. And I want to go out and be the one campaigning for the Reverend Pinckney. So take that back, Reverend.
All right. Dear brother.
I'd like to mention one thing that I realized on the power, I could be wrong, that they had of what we give them. We got to learn to just look in ourselves, what we can do for ourselves. Once we come together, all this voting and what they want doesn't matter. Because we are people that believe in we can do it for ourselves. That doesn't matter with us. We do what we have to do and come together and empower ourselves. And anything get in the way, once we're going to, we have to deal with that there. That's just plain and simple.
Thank you so much, Sister Coffee.
Okay, real quickly, in her, the young sister's question about you all being isolated, I just want to say from a candidate standpoint, I was isolated a whole lot. And I tell you, by my own people, and that was the most hurtful thing about the entire campaign. But I tell you what kept me going and uplifted me were the few people that did support me and say, hey, I'm on board, you know, and actually showed up and showed out. But I just want to say, Comrade Yeshitela, the event that you're doing tomorrow here at 7 o'clock, can we also catch that on Facebook? Yeah. All right, everybody, so you can catch that on Facebook. I tune in on it on Facebook. And then also one more thing. God, it was something else I wanted to say. Daggone it, I can't remember it. But anyway, thank you so much, and I'll pass the mic on to the next person. 41,000, yeah, so thank you so much, okay.
That's right.
Okay,
You know, one of the things, they always gonna try to isolate you. That's one of the weapons they use, you know. So my thing is keep coming back. You know, they sent me to prison twice, you know. And if, you know, it's so happens if they do it 3 times, you know, I'm coming back and let them know, well, you got something for me, bring it on. And I think that should be one of our attitudes that we have so they can get a message themselves. You know?
Right.
Because right now I'm in control. They're not.
I know the third thing, when you all are endorsing people and you read the new thing, I think that it should be important that, and you might want to consider this, you know, that you put in there that the candidates have to keep some of the same people, a certain percentage of the same people they start with. Because too often I'm seeing candidates changing ships once they make it. And that's a part of that payola. So I think we should keep some of the people, have to keep at least half the team or a certain percentage of the team to help get us there. Because ain't nothing like having a team that gets you there and then you want to change horses, because I didn't see it happen. Okay,
right.
Thank you.
That's right. Thank you.
I also wanted to speak to Sister Naila's question about just isolation, and as Reverend Pinckney said, it's a tool used by them, you know, as a weapon against us. However, you know, part of our campaigns was not relying on what they could do for our campaign. It was really about being in the streets, the groundwork, knocking on doors and talking to people. And also just in terms of being demoralized, that we don't have time to be demoralized. We got to keep coming back. And that, you know, I just want to make a point that the Black is Back coalition came as a result of, you know, political isolation and the unpopular opinion about Barack Hussein Obama being a neocolonial sellout. And now look at Black is Back today. So that was birthed from an unpopular opinion and trying to be isolated. And I mean, obviously the power of the people is extremely successful.
I'd like to respond to the sister. I don't know if you heard me real clear in terms of, I guess for myself over the years, I've been involved in the movement, that you have to, first of all, have a love for your people. You got to love Black folks, because if you really don't love Black folks, and when all kinds of the madness that you get from our people who are not educated to the level that they should, will demoralize you. So it has to be part of you being involved. You have to have the spirit of tenacity. You have to have the spirit of wisdom. You have to have the spirit of understanding. And simply, you have to have the spirit that this is a protracted struggle and that we don't win. And that if you look at history, victory comes to people, to our people, not just overnight. It's a struggle. And that's what it's all about. and we're in the long race. And I really salute you for being at the level that you're at, and pray that everyone keep her grounded, because if we don't, I hate to even say we don't, because I pray in my lifetime I see the liberation of my people.
That's right.
But it may have to come in your lifetime. So those are the qualities that I would say that you need to consider, so you won't be demoralized, because the enemy wants us to be demoralized. But you got to understand that you may be that person that lead us to freedom. And so with that said, prayerfully you'll have those as your consideration as far as qualities that you need to possess, not to be demoralized.
Hold on, Diop, before we, how good are we on time? 2 minutes, okay, so we have time for your question?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a question. I just wanted to raise the issue of dual and contending power. You know, I know it was said that, you know, the objective is to take or seize political power through the electoral process, which I really appreciate being said. And, you know, I think it's important, for one, that candidates join organization, you know, particularly those that belong to the coalition, as a means of gaining training in a certain kind of way to learn and understand the issues that they will be putting out through their platform. And part of my question or comment is also speaks to the discussion led by Glen around the internet and the Facebook and private corporations imposing censorship on revolutionary organization, and just really pointing out the importance of developing a capacity for dual and contending power of media and press, and, you know, achieving the ability to have print media, so that even if the state shuts down the internet, which it has done in instances of rebellion, we have the ability to distribute our own information in the form of flyers, newspapers, etc. But I would like, if anybody is able to speak to the question of dual and contending power, and how that struggle relates to the work being done on the electoral front, you know, in terms of various issues being addressed.
I know we have to move forward, but I just want to say that it shouldn't be on any individual in terms of demoralization. Organization is central.
Exactly.
So the mission has to be in the organization, because we're going to lose people who are in the organization. People are going to quit for any number of reasons: demoralization, hit by a car, go over to the other side, you know, all kinds of things. So we have to have in the organization, the mission has to be centered in the organization. So regardless of the individual, we want good individuals, but if we don't have them, we got the organization that carries out the mission. So that's one thing. You got to be organized. And secondly, I just want to say that relative to what Comrade Glen talked about and what Diop just mentioned, the thing that I was going to say, and I had a Ronald Reagan moment, which is I forgot.
It wasn't a Ronald Reagan moment. You didn't have a Ronald Reagan moment.
Which is to say I forgot. But the point that I really was going to make is that in the last steering committee meeting we had, we talked about this issue of how the ruling class was moving to really keep our voice out of their institutions and platforms. And what I'm going to be calling for from the coalition is to have a national conference on this question, so that Africans from everywhere can come together, and we're going to see how we're going to communicate, because what can we do cooperatively to make sure that our voice is out there somewhere? What tools do we have possession of? Can we create collectively so that our voice can be, because they're going to cut all of that stuff away from us. So, and plus the damn thing's going to crash anyway. So we need to be able to function independent of what it is that they do. And we need to come about and say what kind of institutions already exist for us that we have, and how can we use and cooperate with each other in order to make sure that we can get the word out. Comrade Sister Lisa, I know you got to move this agenda.
Oh, yes, and I think we are at time. I just would like to remind people we didn't always have the internet. There used to be the Underground Railroad, and there were ways that we did get it out, so I'm definitely in support of looking again at all the ways we have to get things out. And I just want to just throw one thing out real quickly in conclusion to this portion of the forum. I think another period that we should look at, and I'm just going to put this out there, we can take it up later, but the period of the Reconstruction, when African people, when at least chattel slavery had been thrown off, and some of the very, very strong and brave and heroic things that some of our ancestors did. I think we really need to re-examine that and to look at that. And some of them, you know, ran for office and all that kind of stuff, but they had a fire about them and revolutionary, and they took no prisoners with it. But I just wanted to throw that out there. And again, thank you, everyone, and you. Okay, thank you.
Who? Black? Oh, round of applause for this amazing panel. Yes, round of applause. Akile Nai, oh, Lisa Davis, oh, Zaki Baruti, oh, and Reverend Pinckney. Yes, you don't want Pinckney coming for that ass. Yes. Ooh. Yes, Reverend Pinckney took everything they could throw at him, didn't he, y'all? Didn't he, y'all? Kept on fighting. And I also, you know, I don't want to miss giving a salute to this sister. If Sister Dorothy Pinckney can stand up real quick. If you can stand up real quick. This is his wife. Because, you know, when they gave him time, she did time too. Because he said, I went in 2. She said, baby, it was 3 because I was there with you, nigga. Yes, you better know your man. Know your man. Stand by him. Oh, yes, a hooroo. And I love that shawl. Yes, that snake skin. Let me borrow that next time, girl. All right. And now to the stage, we're going to have my sister whose birthday it is, Elikya and Ngoma. All right, coming through to give announcements, and then soon the Karamu, the feast is coming. All right, ahuru. All right, so we got some beats all coming through. Akile, just press play on there. Here we go now, here we go now. Wine, quick wine. All right, low. All right, so some of y'all know what this means. What am I about to announce, y'all? What am I about to announce? The Marcus Garvey Legacy Cruise. Give a round of applause for that. All right. So, you know, we hear this Caribbean music. Imagine yourself relaxing on a soulful Caribbean cruise, and at the same time celebrating our rich African legacy and history in places like the Cayman Islands, Belize, Cozumel, as well as Honduras. The Marcus Garvey Legacy Cruise, which will be leaving from Miami, Florida, taking place December 9th to 16th, is a fundraiser cruise that honors not only one of the greatest sons of Africa, one of the greatest African leaders of all time, Marcus Garvey, but it's also a fundraiser for the work of the African Socialist International. On board, you will join Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the leader of the Uhuru movement, in a relaxed, down-to-earth setting. Everybody is welcome to join this cruise, and it brings together great company amongst African people. So to register, you can get one of these packets right at the Omali Yeshitela table where Brandy is. Brandy with 2 E's. Can you raise your hand? All right. You can also call Linda Stern, who is the travel agent. All this information is on here as well. Her number is 732-972-4171. You can also contact me at 786-505-9859. And we have the capacity to start registering people even here. So if you're interested today, you can register today. Right now, we're at the $250 mark, which is where you pay this deposit to choose your cabin, to hold it at the current price, to reserve it, and then you have until September 12th to pay the rest. So for more information, again, you can visit uhurulegacycruise.org. You can also donate at that same website. Get one of these packets, see us later, call Linda Stern, et cetera, and et cetera. All right, so for my second announcement, I know everybody has one of these in their packets. It's about the African People's Socialist Party's 7th Congress, which is taking place
October 6th to 12th, and we actually have a video to promote that, and then I'll come back with the future announcements. Uhuru.
This video showing that?
The African People's Socialist Party is convening its 7th Congress, October 6th through the 12th in St. Louis, Missouri. The Congress is a mandated practice by our party, where every 5 years, the membership of the African People's Socialist Party comes together to report on the previous period and lay out the way forward for our collective future. The theme of this Congress is fittingly titled Vanguard, the Advanced Detachment of the African Revolution. Chairman Omali Yeshitela of the African People's Socialist Party explains the meaning behind the term vanguard in his political report to the 7th Congress, stating, "For our party, the advanced detachment or vanguard means that we have freely and enthusiastically stepped forward to lead the struggle for the total liberation and unification of Africa and our entire dispersed African nation wherever we are located. Come witness and participate in the most historically significant event of our movement for Black Power within the last 100 years. The party will be hosting a Black Power Masquerade Ball as well as a silent auction, part of the many activities occurring at this event. Experience the Vanguard Party for an entire week in St. Louis, Missouri, ground zero of African resistance and home to the new institutions of the Black Power Blueprint. For registration details regarding our 7th Congress, including travel and hotel, visit apspcongress.org. African People's Socialist Party's 7th Congress, Vanguard, the advanced detachment of the African Revolution.
So one of the ways that we have been getting ready for this powerful Congress is by engaging in a special 8-week series of Omali Taught Me, which is a Sunday study that takes place every Sunday from 7 to 9 Central, 8 to 10 Eastern. And for the past 5 weeks, we're going on week 6 now of this 8-week special series, we have been reading the political report written by Chairman Omali Yeshitela to the African People's Socialist Party's 7th Congress. And this week, which is tomorrow, we will be covering chapter 6, which is titled The Regional Strategy, Putting Dual Power into Practice. And everybody is more than welcome to attend here in person. Also, for those who are watching on the live stream, you can like the Chairman Omali Yeshitela like page to be notified when we go live tomorrow morning. Again, that's 7 to 9 Central, 8 to 10 Eastern. You know, people come and have a powerful discussion takes place afterwards, just wonderful questions, really appreciating what Chairman Omali Yeshitela has written. Also, we have been, the African People's Socialist Party has been engaged in regional conferences. And on August 18th and 19th, which is next weekend, pre-Congress regional conferences. Thank you. Next week, which taking place here at the St. Louis Uhuru House, this is one of our worldwide pre-conference regional conferences. And these are all taking place in various locations. The southern region has had one already. Chairman Omali Yeshitela will be reading the political report to the 7th Congress there as well. And to register for that, you can visit Midwest Regional Conference, APSP 2018.eventbrite.com. I'm gonna say that again. So it's Midwest Regional Conference, APSP 2018.eventbrite.com. And our last announcement is that if you look at your program for today, we do have another movie night incorporated in the schedule for today, where we will be watching the Battle of St. Pete, and that will be introduced later. So everybody is welcome to stay. And also, if you know any people in the city, you can call them up and tell them to come. We also have more lunches available for the cost of $5, which I think is more than fair. So y'all can get that, okay? So if you want more lunch, you can see myself or Kinge in the back. Uhuru.
I said, Uhuru! That's right, that's right. Them the Africans I know. Fist up! Fist up! Yes. What did white power say? Comply or die? All right, so I'll be white power, y'all be black people. So I'll say comply or die, you'll say fist up, fight back. You ready? Comply or die. I said comply or die. That's right. All right. We're going to win this thing. All right. So for our closing remarks, we have the man that makes this whole thing possible, that allows us the ability to be standing in this house, to be seeing Black power, to be seeing the second coming of the Garvey movement. For me in my young life, to see this 50-foot, flagpole, this beautiful historic flagpole that's going to have the huge African flag on it, and to present this huge flagpole. Okay, 50 feet. 50 feet. Do y'all hear that? I said, did y'all hear that? Woo, that's right. And it's going to have our flag, the flag that our people voted for. 50,000 Africans that came to New York City from all around the world to vote for that flag. That is just so powerful. We had the flag up just for a little bit, and everybody, cars were stopping, they were honking, we had people coming in. We recruited about 5 people just from accidentally putting up the flag just a little bit. And that's how powerful it was, that people are waiting for that. So I'm just so appreciative to be a part of this era, to be a part of, and under the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And here he comes for our closing comments. Uhuru! Israel Africa! One Africa! One nation! Oh!
Uhuru, thank you so much, Comrade Gazi, brothers and sisters. Is there anything that would prevent us from showing the movie before 5:45? There's nothing that prevents that, is there?
It's our house, Chairman.
Okay. You like that too much, bro, right? Yeah, we don't want to keep people too late. I do just want to appreciate this extraordinary first day that we've had here. I want to appreciate the quality of the discussions that we've had here. And I just think that's, it's been great discussions. And I think that one of the things that contributes to the significance of everything that's been said is that it's all related to doing something. Do you know what I mean? It's not just having a discussion, it's all related to doing something. That's, I think, so powerful about the coalition, that it has brought people together who were doing something, and then it has given us the ability to contribute to things that each of us may be doing any place around the world as well. So that's powerful. I have, tremendous respect for everybody here, the young people who have stepped out, and that's one thing I really appreciate about most of the work where we are almost every place. So I left South Africa in April. Comrade Deputy Chair and I and Timber, the party is present in what they call South Africa. In various provinces, we're actually building on the ground there, have been for a while. And the really striking thing is that everywhere we are, young people, young Africans are stepping forward. I mean, really young Africans, you know what I'm talking about, really young Africans are stepping forward. And, that's when you know what kind of movement you're in. Because young people come because they can see the future. That's right. If you just see a movement, nothing but geriatrics like me and what have you, you understand that that's because people can't see the future. And if young people are there, it's because in what they see, us organizationally, they can see the future in there. And that's what young people are interested in. It's only old people who are always looking backwards and talking about the good old days that never were really good. You understand? I want to express appreciation for that. And also, I think everybody should really appreciate the veterans who are in this house. You know, I really truly believe that. I mean, even these technical people drive me crazy. You understand? I mean, Hewitt said the power, that's what he said, that demands, that the power of the people greater than the man's technology. Sometimes I wonder about that. And as always with this system, you know, that the technical people do this thing to us. But I cannot overstate the significance of veterans. And we don't always get along. You know, we don't necessarily have the same philosophy all the time and what have you. Well, people have been in the damn trenches, you know, and fighting against this common enemy from the perspective that they come from. You know, and I can't overstate the significance of that. There are comrades who, you know, I have very serious struggles with politically, ideologically, what have you, but I still have a certain respect for the fact that they have fought and continue to fight, and they're still in the trenches, because a lot of people I started out with, you know, they left the trenches a long time ago, and they did. So I just want to think that I really have a tremendous amount of respect, and all of us should. We should always have some respect. I say this, I don't say this casually, because there are some veterans who are sellouts. I don't respect them Negroes, and I just said Negroes to be polite. You understand? They sell out, they sold us out, and they do it today. And I have struggles with them, and we've never hesitated engaging in struggle. And struggle is healthy, so damn good. Because you really can't develop if you're not engaged in these struggles. You have to engage in the struggle. That's the only way you grow. That's the only way the community learns who we are, and we learn who we are as a consequence of these struggles. As a consequence of struggles, we learn what errors we're involved in, and we hopefully educate other people who are making errors as well. If we see struggle and criticism and self-criticism as a means of process of solving problems and development, then we're not afraid of criticism. We welcome it, because hopefully if you're criticizing me, it helps show me the way. Sometimes we are so accustomed to blaming and avoiding blame that we can't handle the question of criticism and self-criticism, because we're always blaming and avoiding blame. So you know, we don't have a real problem with that. And I just wanted to, again, it's been a great conference up to now. I'm really proud of our coalition. Listen, it's a struggle. It's a struggle because there's so many opportunities to split. Do you know what I mean? There's so many opportunities to not be in the coalition, so many opportunities to not get along. And that for almost 9 years, in September, we've held it together and we've moved forward, and I think made a big difference in this movement. And I think history will show that to be the case. We're going to show a film. It's called The Battle of St. Petersburg. And this film was referenced, this struggle was referenced in somebody's presentation already on today. I think perhaps it was Elikya, but I'm not sure. And it's interesting because right now we are around the 4th anniversary of the police murder of 18-year-old Mike Brown. And it was a real grotesque murder. They murdered this brother in August in St. Louis. And they left his body in 100-degree+ weather on asphalt for 4.5 hours. For 4.5 hours on 100-degree+, I mean, he was cooking, you understand, for 4.5 hours. And, you know, the reason they do it was the same reason they would, you know, hang us and leave us there so people can see us and decapitate us and stick the heads on poles and stuff to terrorize the rest of the community and say, this is what happens to you, nigga, if you defy white power. And I'm so appreciative. Young Africans, I mean, rose up And as they brought me here, like I said, with the chant, "Kill the police." I said, "We back," because remember, we used to say that except it was "off the pigs," right? But it's the same way, and that's what really helped me to understand we are a new place. That was before they were able to bring in some other people who they usually bring in every time there's a rebellion to pray us into exhaustion or something to that effect. And the reason I wanted to show this is because the Battle of St. Petersburg, this is a struggle that happened in 1996. And it has some of the same implications for the time that this thing happened in St. Louis had. I say St. Louis because St. Louis Ferguson is really what we're looking at. And except there was no internet. And so it wasn't able to maintain the same kind of attention for the period of time that happened right here in St. Louis Ferguson. I think it's an instructive piece, and we can talk about it after we show the video. So should we do that now? Is that appropriate? You need a couple of minutes? What were you saying? So you can, if you like, you know, there's some remaining sandwiches that can be purchased for $5, and because we have to pay for that, the coalition does. And so they'll be working to do whatever is necessary to show this, and you can take 10 or something to that effect. Uhuru. What do you think? Yes, sir. Oh, wait. Oh, you don't think they're coming, huh? Okay. I'll tell you. Yeah. Magic, can you tell me how they can see this? How tomorrow's study. We're gonna be here on Facebook. He doesn't know if Ralph and Betty are gonna. Where are you? What hotel are you? Yeah, okay, we'll get it. Yeah, we talking about you like a dog. Yeah, man, you got good. Yeah. I was talking about when this, the 79. But they can, somebody's going. You're going to be coming from that. Yeah. There's going to be the study that I told you Sunday morning, the 7 o'clock study. So he was trying to figure out how to get here. That's all. Yeah. But if it's difficult for you, I mean, somebody else will be coming from that. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Oh, I see. It is, huh? Oh, okay. Okay, got you. I got you. Let me work that right now. Let me work. Down. Mic shut. Down. Love, you ready? Love, can you turn that fan off? Where's the fan? The fan can't be turned off? That's a strange fan.
Uhuru, so we're about to play the movie in about 2 minutes, so please get your snacks, everybody. And then when you sit down, Can we all just sit as close as possible and come together as one people? Thank you, Uhuru.